Chapter 2764. Now that the fight for the throne had reached its climax, and the Holy Emperor still hadn't named a crown prince, all the princes and imperial grandsons felt that they might ascend the throne and reach the peak of power. Xiao Zijin's face was cold, and she cupped her hands. No need to trouble third uncle, nephew can solve it myself. Yes, I caught the tiger alive. Xiao Zijin took out her sword, and it seemed that she wanted to catch the tiger alive. The third Wang Ye sneered, for a tiger, she didn't care about her life. Under the siege of the guards and Xiao Zijin, the tiger was injured. It seemed that soon, the tiger would be caught alive by Xiao Zijin. The third Wang Ye was a little anxious. He pulled the bow and arrow, and pointed the arrow at the tiger's head. Then, with a whoosh, the arrow was shot at the tiger, but unfortunately, the tiger dodged the arrow and couldn't hit the tiger. Xiao Zijin was fighting with the tiger, wondering why the tiger didn't kill the third Wang Ye. Roar! The tiger made a hurried roar, and the horses were frightened by the tiger's roar. One by one, they pawed their hooves, and some horses directly stood up, throwing the people on their backs off. The third Wang Ye's horse was also frightened. The third Wang Ye fell off the horse, and the guards around him quickly protected him. The tiger was very anxious, and it tried to break through the encirclement of the third Wang Ye. Xiao Zijin saw that there was hope, so she quietly made space for the tiger to rush to the third Wang Ye. Xiao Zijin couldn't help but tremble. She was about to achieve her goal, and this annoying person was about to disappear. Even if she didn't die, she couldn't get away with it. The third Wang Ye's face was pale, and he realized that this might be a trap to kill him. But Xiao Zijin was so powerful that she could control the beast. How could this be? How could this be? The third Wang Ye's face was pale, and the guards around him quickly shouted, "Protect the Wang Ye, protect the Wang Ye." She raised her spear and stabbed at the tiger. The tiger was forced back, and it ran back. What was even more frightening was that the tiger directly rushed at Xiao Zijin. The speed was very fast, so fast that it was like an afterimage. The cruel expression on Xiao Zijin's face froze. Then, she felt pain under her neck, then her chest, and then her stomach. The intense unbearable pain and anger made Xiao Zijin directly fainted. While he was unconscious, he could vaguely see the woman in white on the tree branch. Her mouth was wide open, and her white clothes were like a ghost. What was going on? He wanted to ask, why? Why? In the blink of an eye, everyone saw the tiger pouncing on Xiao Zijin with its claws raised. From head to tail to abdomen, the tiger's claws tore at Xiao Zijin's face. Everyone felt a chill in their crotch. The tiger seemed to not be able to vent its hatred. It bit Xiao Zijin's calf, and the sound of bones breaking could be heard. Everyone was stunned. When they saw the tiger dragging Xiao Zijin away as if it was dragging its prey away, they reacted and hurriedly wanted to kill the tiger. However, the tiger ran very fast and disappeared from his sight in an instant. That tiger couldn't have become a spirit, right? When the tiger disappeared, someone with a quick reaction immediately said, "The most important thing now is His Highness. Quickly summon the imperial physician." Everyone had just reacted. How could they care about hunting now? The emperor's most beloved grandson had been injured to such an extent by a tiger. What could they do? Whether or not he could survive was a problem. Xiao Zijin's father died. Who would have thought that not long after, Xiao Zijin would follow her father's path and die at such a young age? Xiao Zijin was carried back to the camp. She was covered in blood and was unrecognizable. When the emperor saw this, he was so angry that he almost fainted. What was going on? He knew something would happen, but he didn't expect it to be Xiao Zijin. "Princess, something happened to Princess." A maidservant opened the curtain and happened to see Ning Shu coming out. "What's wrong?" Ning Shu asked with a surprised face. "Princess, His Highness was caught by a wild beast." "What?" Ning Shu was shocked. He staggered a bit, as if he couldn't stand. Fortunately, there was a maidservant to support him. "Where is she now?" Ning Shu asked with red eyes. Ning Shu was supported by a maidservant to the outside of the tent. Many people were guarding outside the tent. Ning Shu was allowed to enter. The emperor and many other princes, and imperial grandsons were all present. When they saw Ning Shu, they all looked at her with pity and sympathy. Xiao Zijin's clothes had been taken off. There were deep scratches on her body, almost to the point of injuring her family jewels. Although it was not serious, it was unknown whether he could still have sex in the future. The scratches were bleeding. Xiao Zijin's face was ashen white, looking like a dead person. Ning Shu sat on the ground and buried his head in the ground, crying silently. Everyone could only see his trembling body. The imperial hospital used all kinds of methods and took out a lot of precious herbs to save Xiao Zijin's life. But it was uncertain whether she could survive. With such deep scratches and injuries on her legs, Xiao Zijin might have problems walking in the future. The imperial doctor's words made the emperor's face ugly. He glanced at his sons and grandsons. He liked that person. Who had a short life. If he wanted to kill that person in the future, he could just worship the heavens. Naturally, there would be someone to deal with it. Even if he wanted to harvest wool, he couldn't harvest a person. First kill the father, then kill the son. Was his love so poisonous? The emperor held a breath in his heart and was too lazy to worship the heavens. Ning Shu stayed by Xiao Zijin's side day and night, taking care of Xiao Zijin. He did not rest for several days and nights. His face was as pale as a ghost. The emperor ordered a search of the forest. He would definitely find the beast and chop it into meat paste. A beast dared to kill the grandson of the emperor. The guards bitterly began to search the mountain, but the tiger ran away. No one knew where it went. After searching a large area, the tiger was not found. Seeing that it was time to worship the heavens, the emperor also focused on worshipping the heavens. However, Xiao Zijin's matter added a bit of haze to the entire process of worshipping the heavens. A few days later, they set off for home. Xiao Zijin had a high fever on the way. Ning Shu ground the medicine and fed it to her. This medicine was anti-infection. The imperial doctor brewed medicine for Xiao Zijin every day. The wounds were constantly changed, but Xiao Zijin's situation was just like that. When she woke up, she immediately fell asleep. The imperial doctor told the emperor that Xiao Zijin's situation was not good. He had to be mentally prepared. He had to prepare for her funeral. After returning to the capital, Xiao Zijin was arranged to stay in the palace. Every day, a large group of imperial doctors surrounded her. Ning Shu stayed close to her. He helped to wipe her body and did some things to take care of Xiao Zijin. Ning Shu occasionally injected a bit of spiritual energy into Xiao Zijin's body. Xiao Zijin's life was hanging on and gradually improved. However, Xiao Zijin's legs were crippled. Whether she could walk in the future depended on the recovery. She might not be able to walk for the rest of her life. /BK Chapter 2765 Xiao Zijin woke up more and more often. When he first woke up, he was still in a daze, but he gradually regained his senses and remembered what had happened. First, he denied what had happened to him, then he cried out in pain, "Ning Anshuang, you lied to me." Xiao Zijin's voice was actually very soft, as if he was whispering. He didn't have the strength to shout now. When the emperor heard that his grandson had passed the critical period, he had survived, but he was also a cripple. Unable to find the culprit, the emperor felt stifled in his heart. He vented his anger on the people present at the time and scolded them. Especially the princes and grandsons, he scolded them again and again. Seeing these people kneeling in front of him in fear, the emperor's anger was slightly extinguished. When Xiao Zijin was more or less healed, he was carried back to his own house. He couldn't stay in the palace forever. Other than sleeping, Xiao Zijin was angry all the time. His leg injury made it impossible for him to get off the ground. "Where's your sister? Call her out." Xiao Zijin looked at Ning Shu ferociously, his eyes red. "This king wants her soul to scatter." Xiao Zijin fell from heaven to hell. Success was right in front of him. The miserable scene he imagined happened to his enemy, and now he was in such a miserable state. His heart's aspiration, his heart's ambition, could not be achieved. He would never have the chance to sit on the throne again. The Netherworld Ghost Army he imagined was gone. The Beast Army was gone. Nothing was left. He was stripped of everything. Although he was a prince, he was excluded from the fight for the throne. Xiao Zijin looked at Ning Shu with hatred. "Where's that bitch Ning Anshuang? She betrayed me." He definitely wouldn't believe that this was an accident. Ning Shu twisted the handkerchief and carefully wiped his hands. "Prince, sister didn't expect this situation. She had the situation under control, but she didn't expect the tiger to suddenly go crazy. Sister doesn't dare to appear in front of you. She said she's going back to hell." Pfft. Xiao Zijin spat out a mouthful of blood and couldn't breathe for a long time. He looked terrifying. "What did you say? She caused trouble and ran away. How could she do this? How could she do this?" Xiao Zijin cried. Ning Anshuang was the biggest failure of his life. He had trusted Ning Anshuang too much, which was why he had landed in this world. Seeing Ning Ani, who resembled Ning Anshuang, Xiao Zijin roared, "Scram!" Ning Shu swiftly rolled away and went to see Hong Er. Ever since Xiao Zijin's accident, the wet nurse's attitude towards Hong had obviously loosened a bit. Hong Er could now crawl. Sometimes, he would bump into tables and chairs. When it hurt, the nanny would sometimes let the child cry. Ning Shu dealt with the wet nurse and sent her away. Then, he personally took care of the child. Xiao Zijin's temper was getting worse and worse. She didn't allow anyone to get close to her. Ning Shu was too lazy to take care of the child. This mission was to use Ning Anshuang, and before Ning Anshuang died, she was indeed in love with Xiao Zijin. Although he didn't know who was the one to blame for this love. Some love may not be what it looks like on the surface. There was tolerance and sacrifice in love. Ning Shu, who was acting as Ning Anshuang, obviously didn't care much about Xiao Zijin. This love was a little unrecognizable now. Ning Shu said to 2333, "I want to give Ning Anshuang some merit. Can you send it over?" He didn't know if Ning Anshuang was in the world of samsara or in the afterlife. 2333 said, "Whether it's in the world of samsara or in the afterlife, you can definitely send it over. You need to sign the other party's name on the merit. The merit can find the sender's sister on its own." Ning Shu pulled out two extremely thin golden threads. He put his palms together and said Ning Anshuang's name 3 times. Then, he opened his hands and the two golden threads intertwined together. They floated up as if they were drifting with the wind and drifted out of the plane. They passed through the plane and arrived at the grey world of samsara. The world of samsara was filled with all kinds of strange souls. The two intertwined threads shone with a bright light in the world of samsara. When these souls saw the merit threads, they all rushed over, wanting to grab them. They instinctively felt that this was a good thing. It's been a long time since someone was willing to do merit for the dead. I'm afraid that in the world of the living, someone is doing merit for the dead. The living were willing to do good deeds for the dead and do merit. This merit was counted on the dead. Some skeletons saw the merit in disgust, but no skeletons went to snatch it. This kind of merit had an owner, so it couldn't be snatched. The merit penetrated the layers of soul barriers and directly drilled into the body of a woman. This woman's expression was a little blank. When she saw the endless souls surging towards her, she immediately squatted down in fear and hugged her head. With so many souls, her soul would definitely be torn into pieces. But as soon as these souls approached the woman, a golden light radiated from her body and bounced them away. They couldn't enter her body. With the golden light of merit, the body would instinctively counterattack and protect the souls that had malicious intentions towards her. The woman hugged her head and was very confused. She didn't understand what was going on. She looked at her hands and was very confused. The skeletons looked at the conflict and didn't stop it. There was friction between souls at any time. However, there was no need to care about those who went overboard. They had a more important mission, which was to eliminate the calamity beast. However, those with merit had an additional layer of protection. Their souls wouldn't be easily injured. For example, these skeletons were shining with golden light. These souls didn't dare to approach the skeletons at all. The golden light all over their bodies would burn their souls. Not to mention resisting these skeletons. If one didn't want to be bullied in the world of reincarnation, they could choose to reincarnate. Ning Shu had given her merit, so this karma could be considered settled. This was the karma between her and Ning Anshuang. It had nothing to do with Ning Ani. Actually, Ning Shu's actions couldn't be deceived by the feeling transmitted from this body. Ning Ani was very happy and carefree. He loved her very much. Now that they had turned against each other, he wanted to train himself to be like his elder sister. But he didn't love her that much. It was impossible to say that the client didn't have any resentment towards his elder sister. He was forced to learn from her every day. They could be considered siblings. The parents favored one, and the others still had some resentment in their hearts. Ning Shu bent down and held Hong Er's hand, letting him learn to walk. Hong Er walked unsteadily, drooling. Ning Shu smiled. Ning Shu also smiled. Princess, His Highness insists on getting up from the bed. His leg injury is serious again. The servant girl walked in and Ning Shu bowed. Now, if anything happened in the residence, the servants would immediately look for Ning Shu. After all, the male master didn't care about anything now, so if there was anything, they would naturally look for the female master. Get the butler to find a doctor. Hurry up. Ning Shu handed Hong Er over to the servant girl and headed toward Xiu Zijin's courtyard. Outside the courtyard, one could hear Xiu Zijin's cursing. /BK. Chapter 2766. Ning Shu walked into the room and saw Xiu Zijin's angry face, his face flushed red. He sat on the bed, unable to move. He hammered his leg, but the injury on his leg had not healed yet. The hammering was very painful. Xiu Zijin seemed to hate his leg. The more painful it was, the more he hammered it. It was fine if he was injured, but why was his leg like this? No cripple could be the emperor. The emperor represented the face of the royal family. How could he let a cripple ascend the throne? There were still so many people in the clan. Even if no one from the direct line of descent succeeded the throne, they could still find someone from the side line to succeed the throne. They would not let a cripple sit on the throne. Xiu Zijin understood this logic, so she hated her own leg. Who was it? It was that bastard. How did the bastard come about? It was Ning Anshuang who had summoned it. It was Ning Anshuang's fault. Even now, Ning Anshuang still had not appeared. He wanted her to be unable to reincarnate. Ning Shu tiptoed to avoid the fragments on the ground. He whispered to Xiu Zijin, "Your Highness, what's wrong? Why aren't you eating? Where's Ning Anshuang?" Xiu Zijin stared at Ning Shu. "Let her see me." Ning Shu had the servants remove all the fragments on the ground. He patiently said to Xiu Zijin, "Your Highness, sister is already dead. She has already gone to the underworld. How could she leave like this? She caused me to be like this. She ran away." Xiao Zijin did not believe that Ning Anshuang would abandon him like this. Shouldn't she explain something to him? She was a ghost and had the ability. Could it be that she could not heal his leg? However, Ning Anshuang had escaped without a trace. The power of the mortal world could not cure his leg. Ordinary doctors could not cure his leg. Even the imperial doctors said that his leg might have some sequelae. Whether the sequelae were serious or not depended on the recovery. If he recovered well, he might be able to walk. If he did not recover well, it would be difficult for him to walk. Ning Shu sighed. Fortunately, your highness's life was saved. Actually, sister is a dead person. She has an uncomfortable power in her body. Using this power will definitely backfire. But I didn't expect it to backfire on your highness. Xiao Zijin looked at Ning Shu with a ferocious expression. What do you mean? Are you saying that this prince is reaping what he sowed? Ning Shu helped him tidy up the blankets. This concubine didn't mean that. Elder sister didn't even get to see prince for the last time. Perhaps it was because she was taken away that this concubine didn't get to see elder sister. Sister must be worried about his highness. Even if she can't face his highness, she will definitely ask me about his highness. Therefore, big sister might not even be able to protect herself now. Xiao Zijin only chuckled at Ning Shu's words. He didn't care about Ning Anshuang anymore. From the moment she reached out to strangle him, Xiao Zijin no longer treated Ning Anshuang as his wife. Right now, he only cared about his legs and whether Ning Anshuang could cure them. Ning Shu saw that all of Xiao Zijin's attention was on his legs. The emperor and the imperial physician probably did not tell Xiao Zijin that he had some difficulties with the Tao. It might be a little difficult to have children in the future. But it was hard to say. Perhaps he could have children. In fact, Ning Shu did not go all out in this aspect. If the client's body was healed, she might even be able to have a child with Xiao Zijin. But if he couldn't recover, with Xiao Zijin's current state, he wouldn't be able to be in love with a woman in a short period of time. But at this time, Xiao Zijin probably had no interest in women at all. If your sister comes, you must tell this king and have her come to see this king. Xiao Zijin ordered Ning Shu with a cold expression. Previously, he had hammered his leg, and now it was very painful. Cold sweat rolled down his forehead, and he felt a little regretful. The more he thought about it, the more afraid he became. Would it worsen his leg injury? He could only blame himself for being too angry. Ning Shu said, "This concubine understands, but your highness must be mentally prepared. Elder sister is already dead and has gone to a place where she should go. She dares." After causing him to be like this, she patted her butt and left. How could there be such a good thing? If that was the case, he would let Ning Anshuang go even if he became a ghost in the future. After becoming a ghost, he would also have Ning Anshuang's abilities. It was better to live than to die. The current Xiao Zijin didn't have the courage to die. He was too unwilling. He hadn't been able to kill his enemy, and instead, he had become like this. This should have been the fate of his enemy. Ning Shu took the thin porridge that the maidservant brought over, blew on it, and brought it to Xiao Zijin's mouth. Xiao Zijin wasn't angry, and directly waved the bowl and spoon in Ning Shu's hand. The bowl and spoon fell to the ground and shattered. The thin porridge flowed all over the floor. Ning Shu wasn't angry. He ordered the maidservant to clean it up and bring over another bowl. "Your Highness, you must take good care of your body. If you don't eat, your body won't be able to hold on. Take care of your body. When elder sister comes, does your Highness want elder sister to see you in such a sorry state?" Xiao Zijin was only gasping for breath. His face was flushed red, and the veins on his forehead were throbbing. "Your Highness, it's better not to mention elder sister, lest others say that you're crazy. Elder sister has been dead for more than a year." Ning Shu warned. If Xiao Zijin said that he had seen the ghost of his dead wife, no one would believe him. They would only think that Xiao Zijin had gone crazy. As for those Jianhu practitioners who had seen ghosts, it didn't matter. Even if they spread it everywhere, it was useless. You should know whether this prince is crazy or not. Xiao Zijin was irritable. Scram. I don't want to see you right now. Ning Shu nodded. Alright, Qinxie will leave now. Your Highness, don't be angry. It's not good for your body to be angry. Does your Highness want to see Hong Er? Qinxie will bring Hong Er over. Hong Er hasn't seen Imperial Father in a long time. Xiao Zijin refused without even thinking. Of course, Xiao Zijin was angry. Hong Er was born by Ning Anshuang. Ning Anshuang had caused him to be like this. Now that he saw Hong Er, he was afraid that he wouldn't be able to control his emotions. Ning Shu gently said, Qinxie understands. Qinxie will take good care of Hong Er. Your Highness, don't be willful. Eat your medicine and eat well. Take care of your body. Scram. Xiao Zijin didn't want to listen to her nagging. He had been harmed to this extent, yet he still had to listen to a woman's nagging. It was too annoying. Ning Shu had people send porridge and medicine to Xiao Zijin's bedside. Xiao Zijin could eat whatever he wanted. If he didn't want to eat, then forget it. How could there be so many bowls and chopsticks for you to smash? Just starve for 1 or 2 meals. Ning Shu returned to her courtyard and teased the child. During this period of time, Ning Shu had been trying to recuperate the entrusted person's body. Although the body was no longer as cold as before after absorbing the power of the fire, the body was still damaged. It was like a water tank with many cracks. No matter how much it was repaired, it couldn't be like before. The possibility of getting pregnant with this body was not high. This kind of damage was irreversible. It also meant that the entrusted person's fate with children in this life was very shallow/BK. Chapter 2767. Since Xiao Zijin's accident, Ning Shu had taken control of the prince's residence and had begun to take medicine to recuperate his body. Taking medicine 3 times a day was the same. The spiritual energy in his body was used to heal his body. He still hoped that the client could have his own child. Since the imperial grandson was injured, many people came to visit Xiao Zijin with gifts. Ning Shu received these people and said that the prince was in a bad mood and didn't want to see anyone. The guests expressed their understanding and didn't want to see Xiao Zijin. Besides, it was embarrassing to go over and get unlucky. Of course, there were also people who mocked and ridiculed, saying that Xiao Zijin bumped into an immortal and was injured by the prey while hunting. Now she became a hunter. There were also poor Ning Shu who had to live such a life at such a young age. There were many people who worshipped the strong and stepped on the weak. Especially during the fight for the throne, some people joined forces. The wives in the backyard naturally followed their husbands' footsteps. Naturally, their master had one less opponent. Of course, there were also wives who put on a good show and put on a good show. In the face of these mockery and ridicule, Ning Shu directly began to wipe his tears. He endured and endured, but it seemed that he couldn't take it anymore and directly ran to the emperor to complain. He was originally a beloved grandson, but when his grandson was injured, you guys were still grinning. If I don't punish you, who should I punish? Because of this, many officials in the imperial court suffered some punishment, big or small. Especially the sons and grandsons below, who formed cliques and attacked those who didn't. This was a good opportunity to rectify. After such a commotion, no matter what those madams and misses said, at least in front of Ning Shu, they wouldn't mock and ridicule him. As for what they said behind his back, sorry, I can't hear. I don't care what you say behind my back. In front of me, you have to hold back your opinions. Of course, Ning Shu went to the emperor and pretended to be miserable. Now that the emperor was old, if the new monarch came to deal with people, he had to have something to rely on. The old emperor gave Xiao Zijin a loyal and brave title, which could be considered to give Xiao Zijin something to rely on. Although it was said to be for Xiao Zijin, it was actually for the future Hong-er. After that, Ning Shu hid in the prince's residence and rarely went out. He didn't participate in any activities. Although he would receive invitations, Ning Shu would occasionally go. Otherwise, he would just deliver the gifts. All of a sudden, the Wang residence became much more low-key and gradually withdrew from the social circle. But the prince's mansion was not peaceful at all. Xiao Zijin's temper was getting worse and worse. She would often smash things to vent her anger. Ning Shu also specially made a few iron objects for Xiao Zijin to play with. Porcelain was too fragile, and it was also very expensive. Throw iron balls. They're durable. If they're broken, they can be melted and rebuilt. They can be made into any style and shape you want. However, Xiao Zijin became even angrier. She nagged Ning Anshuang every day, saying that she had caused him to become like this. As time passed, Xiao Zijin felt that the chances of Ning Anshuang appearing were getting smaller and smaller. She might never appear again. Xiao Zijin's leg injury was repeated, which made the recovery of his leg very difficult. Walking was very difficult, and she had to use crutches. Xiao Zijin would rather lie on the bed than use the humiliating crutches. Lie down, and do as you please. Anyway, Ning Shu listened to her. You're the patient, so you're the most important. Gradually, the servants of the Wang residence said that the prince had a mental problem. He talked about his dead wife all day and even asked her to come out to see him. How could a dead person come out to see people? Could it be a ghost? It must be that the prince couldn't take the blow and had a mental problem now. Ning Shu beat up these servants. They were not allowed to gossip. If they were not willing to work in the Wang residence, they could be sold and find a new owner. Ning Shu was with Hong-er all day. Now, Hong-er was the closest to her. The Ning family, who used to send a few letters every few days, came to see Xiao Zijin after something happened. They wrote fewer letters. Now, everyone could see that Xiao Zijin was out of the game. It was impossible for her to take the throne. Father Ning also didn't have the chance to be the emperor's father-in-law. Both of his daughters had died in Xiao Zijin's hands. There were no more daughters to marry other princes and imperial grandchildren. Ning Shu felt very comfortable. Finally, no one came to bother him. Every day, there were people reminding him what to do. Mammy Li had been asked to leave by Ning Shu. Mammy Li came from the palace. When she went out, there were still many powerful people who hired her to teach etiquette and rules to their daughters. When Mammy Li left, she looked at it with a complicated expression. Finally, she took the money Ning Shu gave her and left. Mammy Li was very clear. If she didn't leave now, when would she leave? After all, she had taught her to be another person. The hostess had a knot in her heart. Now the whole Wang residence was under the control of the princess. She no longer needed to rely on others and learn from others. Mammy Li didn't expect that the prince would have such a thing. He had a good future. However, people like Xiao Zijin had a high starting point and a great future. No matter how great she was, she could only go further when she became the emperor. But she didn't have to worry about food and drink. Mammy Li didn't regret that she had bet on the wrong treasure. But the change made Mammy Li feel that things had changed. Mammy Li left quickly. If she stayed in the Wang residence, the hostess didn't like her and had a knot in her heart. She couldn't get any respect. It was better to choose someone else to teach the young ladies in the boudoir. Maybe she could teach the empress and the concubines in the harem. Although Mammy Li was old, her heart was still hot. But the princess was too stingy to give her such a little money. However, Mammy Li didn't intend to quarrel with Ning Shu for a little money. Without anyone watching, Ning Shu ate whatever she liked and wore whatever she liked. She completely let herself go. If she didn't want to attend the banquet, she didn't need to go. If she wanted to go, she didn't need to work hard to socialize. She didn't need to make friends with anyone. Ning Shu became an otaku. In order to show her virtue, Ning Shu asked the carpenter to make a wheelchair. Then she pushed the prince out for a walk. Since the prince felt that crutches hurt his self-esteem, he could use a wheelchair. If the prince didn't even want to sit in a wheelchair, he could lie down. Xiao Zijin's temper now was really abominable. She often smashed things and didn't have a good face. The servants who served her were trembling and didn't want to get close to her. As a result, sometimes Xiao Zijin wanted to drink a glass of water, but there was no one around. It was difficult for her to get up and pour herself a glass of water. Feeling her helplessness and incompetence, Xiao Zijin's temper became worse. She was a little unhappy. She even killed the servants. Of course, Ning Shu wouldn't let her kill people. Every time, she was stopped by Ning Shu. The servants who served Xiao Zijin came to Ning Shu to solve or ask for help when they encountered something. Xiao Zijin's eyes were red with anger. What? Now I don't even have the right to punish a servant/BK. Chapter 2768. A woman was acting like a tyrant in his territory. Ning Shu would never get angry at Xiao Zijin and was always gentle. She helped him tidy up his clothes and gently said, "It's just servants. Why is your highness angry? These servants are not doing a good job. Qinxie will teach them well before serving your highness." Ning Shu squatted down and helped Xiao Zijin put on his shoes. Qinxie had someone build a wheelchair. Your highness must be feeling uncomfortable in bed. Qinxie will push you out for a walk. Xiao Zijin's heart felt uncomfortable, as if there was a fire burning in it. Ning Shu's actions made Xiao Zijin feel uncomfortable all over. He couldn't vent his anger. If the other party showed an expression of disdain, he would explode in anger. But now that he was doing this as if it was nothing, he still felt uncomfortable. Xiao Zijin didn't understand what he was thinking. In short, he felt uncomfortable. Ben Wang won't go out. Ning Shu gently said, "That's fine. If your highness doesn't want to go out, then don't go." The surrounding servants felt that the princess consort was the real deal. She didn't change her expression in front of the prince and could even talk to him so calmly. At this time, the wheelchair was pushed in. Ning Shu said, "Push it down. His highness says he doesn't want to go out." Xiao Zijin looked at the wheelchair. The wood was polished until it was smooth. It was obvious that the wheelchair was made with care. Xiao Zijin originally wanted to go out, but Ning Shu's words made his face darken. He couldn't just go back on his words. He didn't want face. Ning Shu acted as if he didn't see Xiao Zijin's expression. He told Xiao Zijin not to get angry. Don't get angry. It wasn't good for his body. Xiao Zijin was irritated and didn't want to listen to him. He directly scrammed. Ning Shu gently bowed. Qinxie will take her leave. Xiao Zijin, when Xiao Zijin saw that Ning Shu really left, he was so angry that he threw things. There was a metal ball beside the bed. Xiao Zijin had to use both hands to hold it. After a while, Ning Shu came again to ask Xiao Zijin if he wanted to take the wheelchair out for a walk in the garden. This time, Xiao Zijin didn't refuse. If he refused again, this woman would turn around and leave. She wouldn't beg him again and try her best to persuade him. Although she was following his wishes, Xiao Zijin still felt sullen in her heart. Xiao Zijin said honestly, "I want to go out." Ning Shu asked two servants to help Xiao Zijin sit in the wheelchair. When they passed by the threshold, the two servants carried the wheelchair over. Once they were out of the door, Ning Shu pushed Xiao Zijin around the courtyard. It was really a warm spring day, and the garden was full of flowers. Seeing these flowers, Xiao Zijin's heart was filled with ruthlessness. She ordered people to pull out the flowers, including the roots. Ning Shu only smiled slightly and said, "If your highness does not like these flowers, I will have people plant new ones that your highness likes." If all the flowers in the garden were uprooted, it would be a waste of time and money to replant them. There was no benefit to it at all. Xiao Zijin's face darkened. "Pull it out." Ning Shu nodded and asked the housekeeper to come over and have someone pull out the flowers. "If these flowers are pulled out, what kind of flowers do you want to plant? What kind do you like? If you want to plant a garden full of flowers, you will need many kinds of flowers. Once you decide what kind of flowers to plant, you can pull them out." Xiao Zijin's heart was filled with irritation. He didn't want to plant any flowers. He just felt uncomfortable and wanted to destroy everything he saw. But the other side was stubbornly waiting for him to say what kind of flowers to plant. She didn't push him forward. Xiao Zijin hatefully said, "I won't pull them out." Ning Shu only smiled and said to the housekeeper, "No need to pull them out." After saying this, Ning Shu slowly pushed Xiao Zijin forward. When they reached the steps of the pavilion, she had the servants carry him out. "Is your highness thirsty? Do you want to drink water?" Ning Shu asked. Xiao Zijin did not speak. Ning Shu said to the servant girl, "There is no need to prepare water. Your highness does not drink water." The servant girl obviously listened to Ning Shu and did not move. Xiao Zijin's face darkened. He was used to being served. If there was anything he needed, the servants would be very considerate. If there was anything he needed, he could just give the order. But right now, Xiao Zijin was in a sensitive and arrogant state. If he opened his mouth, the dignity in his heart would disappear. Ning Shu's way of dealing with this kind of person was called arrogance. To put it bluntly, it was stubbornness. "Since you don't open your mouth, of course I don't think you need it. If you want it, then you should honestly say you need it." This silent tug of war was ongoing. Xiao Zijin did not open his mouth and Ning Shu did not have the servant girl bring the water over. The surrounding servants were all trembling. The atmosphere was suffocating. But Ning Shu did not seem to feel it. He pointed at the flowers in the garden and spoke to Xiao Zijin. Xiao Zijin's face was dark the entire time. He opened his mouth and said, "Let's go back." Ning Shu made a sound of agreement and had Xiao Zijin be pushed back to his own courtyard. Then he helped Xiao Zijin onto the bed. "Your highness must be tired. Do you want to rest?" Ning Shu did not allow any explanation and pulled up the blanket to cover Xiao Zijin. Even now, Ning Shu still did not ask to give him water. He was not opening his mouth to give him water. Xiao Zijin also stubbornly refused to open his mouth to ask for water. Even though he was very thirsty right now. Ning Shu helped him lie down and said, "Your highness must be tired. You can sleep. This concubine will watch over you as you sleep." Xiao Zijin was speechless. If she was here, how was he going to tell the servants that he wanted water? He would rather tell the servants than ask for water from Ning Ani. "You can leave. This prince doesn't need you to watch over me," Xiao Zijin said coldly. Ning Shu gently said, "All right. You can all stand guard outside the door. His Highness wants to take an afternoon nap. Don't disturb him." "Yes." The servant girls and servants in the room all left the room. Ning Shu turned around and said to Xiao Zijin, "Your Highness should rest well." Xiao Zijin saw that Ning Shu had sent the servants away. Why was it so difficult for him to drink water? This woman was purposely going against him, right? But when he looked at her, she was very obedient and gentle. There was no impatience at all. But Xiao Zijin's heart felt uncomfortable. He opened his mouth, but in the end, he did not say, "This prince wants to drink tea." Ning Shu did not hesitate to turn and leave. He even closed the door very considerately and told the servants outside not to disturb His Highness's rest. Xiao Zijin naturally got up by himself. Using the walking stick that made him lose all his dignity, he walked over to the table. Drinking the ice-cold water, he felt a chill in his heart and his entire body shivered. Although it was spring now, the cold liquid made the wound on his leg even more painful. Xiao Zijin used the walking stick to get ready to go back. At this time, the door opened and Ning Shu walked in. He looked at Xiao Zijin who was using the walking stick in surprise. His gaze made Xiao Zijin explode with anger. He threw away the walking stick in his hand, but without support, Xiao Zijin fell to the ground. "Your Highness, what are you doing?" Ning Shu quickly supported Xiao Zijin. "Why did you throw away the walking stick? You can't put any weight on your leg right now." The servants outside all came to support Xiao Zijin. They helped Xiao Zijin onto the bed. Xiao Zijin's expression was ugly. /BK Chapter 2769. Ning Shu sighed and said, "Your Highness, if you want to drink tea, just call the servants. How can you get up and drink tea yourself?" Xiao Zijin held back his anger, his lips trembling and unable to speak. His dignity seemed to have been trampled by her. Even if he opened his mouth to ask for a cup of water, it was nothing. But now, he couldn't open his mouth. It was hard to say. Ning Shu wasn't in a hurry at all. "Take it slow, take it slow." Xiao Zijin's back was facing Ning Shu. He no longer had the strength to vent his anger. He had never been able to accept everything that had happened to him, but so what if he didn't accept it? He had vented his anger and despaired, but he still couldn't change it. He was waiting for Ning Anshuang to appear. Even if Ning Anshuang was a ferocious existence, he was still looking forward to it. But after such a long time, Ning Anshuang never showed her face again. If it wasn't for the wounds on his legs and stomach reminding him, he would have thought that this was a nightmare. Ning Anshuang appeared in her dream. But it wasn't a dream. Xiao Zijin felt that it was better to die than to suffer such pain. But he couldn't bear to die. He didn't dare to die. He didn't have the courage to die. Even if Ning Anshuang was so powerful after turning into a ghost, Xiao Zijin still didn't dare to die. Now, he didn't have any dignity in this palace. Because everyone knew that he had no future. In this life, he would be a useless prince with nothing to do. Because he was injured, the princess was taking care of the backyard. What was his current situation? Xiao Zijin said fiercely to Ning Shu, "This king wants to see Hong Er. Hong would be the hope of the palace." Ning Shu didn't say anything and let the servants carry Hong Er over. Hong Er could walk now, but he walked very slowly. He swayed and couldn't speak clearly. But he couldn't speak clearly. He could call out, "Mother," while drooling. This mother wasn't taught by Ning Shu. It was probably taught by the servant who took Hong Er in to curry favor. Ning Shu didn't correct him. What did a child at this age know? The wet nurse carried Hong Er over. When Hong Er saw Ning Shu, he immediately revealed his 4 little teeth. Saliva dripped from the corners of his mouth as he stretched out his arms, asking for a hug from Ning Shu. Ning Shu took Hong Er from the wet nurse's hands and said to Xiao Zijin on the bed, "Wang Ye, Hong Er is here." Xiao Zijin sat up with difficulty and looked at the child in Ning Shu's arms. She reached out to hold Hong Er. But Hong Er tightly wrapped his arms around Ning Shu's neck and refused to let go. "Hong Er, this is Daddy. Let Daddy hug you," Ning Shu said. Hong Er glanced at Xiao Zijin and then buried his face in Ning Shu's arms, refusing to let Xiao Zijin hug him. Xiao Zijin's face was ugly. Hong Er glanced at her and then immediately buried himself in Ning Shu's arms. Xiao Zijin stretched out her hands and pulled Hong Er from Ning Shu's arms. Hong Er was so scared that he cried and struggled. Xiao Zijin didn't expect that in such a short time, the child wouldn't get close to her. Was it taught by this woman? Ning Shu patted Hong Er's back and said, Hong Er, this is Daddy. Daddy used to be very good to Hong Er. Let Daddy hug you. Hong Er still didn't want to and cried loudly. Ning Shu helplessly looked at Xiao Zijin. Wang Ye, Hong Er hasn't seen you for a while. He's unfamiliar with you. Wait for a while. Ning Shu handed Hong Er, who was crying and hiccuping, to the wet nurse and let her carry him away. Xiao Zijin couldn't watch anymore. What was going on now? Did he have no status or value in the house? Now even the child didn't get close to him. Wang Ye, have a good rest. Qinxie will leave first. Ning Shu hurriedly left. Clearly, she was going to coax the child. After that, Ning Shu faced the angry Xiao Zijin and used the same principle to deal with the changes. If you say no, then don't. If you want something, then say it directly. If you want to say the opposite, let people guess what you're thinking, or make people beg you, sorry, I don't have the time. But Xiao Zijin stubbornly held on. He used this method to preserve his dignity. He couldn't break the dam. Once the dam broke, he would lose his dignity. So, in this case, if you don't want to eat, then fine, withdraw. If you don't want to drink water, then don't drink. If you don't want to wipe your body, then don't wipe. 10 days, half a month, even half a month is fine. But Ning Shu's attitude was respectful. He completely followed the other party's request. If you want to eat or drink, say it. In this kind of confrontation, Xiao Zijin gradually understood. If he really wanted something, he could only say it. But this kind of words had a kind of begging nature. For Xiao Zijin, who was sensitive and wanted to protect his dignity, killing him would be uncomfortable. But if he didn't open his mouth or say the opposite, the other party would really do as he said. He was respectful, but he was so aggrieved that he wanted to die. Xiao Zijin hated his legs, hated the injuries on his body, hated the tiger, hated Ning Anshuang, and hated this Ning Ani in front of him. He hated everything. After enduring for a period of time, Xiao Zijin felt that it was very difficult. His legs were inconvenient. Things that were usually easy to do were now difficult to do. Even the toilet bowl needed someone to support him. When he was relieving himself, there was someone watching from the side. In short, now Xiao Zijin directly spoke, abandoning his arrogance and self-esteem. This prince wants to drink water. This prince wants to eat. This prince wants to go out. This prince, to Xiao Zijin, these words were no different from begging. If his body was in good health and he was a noble prince, these words would be no problem. But now, the sensitive Xiao Zijin was sure that everyone was looking at him strangely. Xiao Zijin felt like a beggar, begging for a meal and a glass of water. Of course, Ning Shu would give him food. If he didn't, he wouldn't give him food. If there was a meal that he forgot to mention, then there was no meal. With Xiao Zijin's status, he couldn't abuse him. Everything was done according to his mood. If there was nothing, he definitely wouldn't disturb him. At this point, even the emperor couldn't find fault with him. What, he had to be forceful to treat him well. Didn't he know that the mood of the patient was very important? If the patient was angry, it wouldn't be good for the body. Under such a confrontation, Xiao Zijin retreated step by step. He gradually developed a good habit of speaking his mind. Ning Shu was quite satisfied with this. Xiao Zijin said the opposite with a straight face. If he didn't eat, then he really didn't. Ning Shu carried Hong Er in front of Xiao Zijin. Xiao Zijin's face was cold. Hong Er didn't want to get close to him at all. The moment he got close, he cried. He became even more clingy to Ning Shu. As a virtuous wife, Ning Shu naturally had to let the father and son get close, so he coaxed Hong Er. Ning Shu didn't think of not letting Hong Er see his father. Wasn't that a guilty conscience? When Hong-er grew up and became sensible in the future, he didn't know if Xiao Zijin would still reminisce about his late wife to his son with deep affection. Not to mention deep affection, it was already amazing that he didn't hate her. /BK Chapter 2770. Whatever Xiao Zijin wanted to eat, whatever he wanted to do, he had to ask. Once he opened his mouth, Xiao Zijin felt that his dignity was getting less and less. He couldn't eat, drink, and relieve himself. Every time he opened his mouth, he admitted that he was a good-for-nothing in his heart. A good-for-nothing who needed to rely on others to survive. If he was abandoned, he wouldn't be able to survive. This subconscious deepened when he opened his mouth to ask again and again. Moreover, he was forced. After a long time, he got used to it and became dependent. At first, Xiao Zijin was angry and resentful. He didn't want to give up his ambition and supreme position. After being hit by reality again and again, he lowered his expectations again and again. Now, as long as someone served him and let him survive, it was good enough. If one day there was no one by his side, what would he do? He didn't know how to wash clothes or cook. He didn't know anything. Moreover, his legs weren't convenient, so he couldn't do anything. Of course, to achieve this effect, Ning Shu spent a lot of time. When he argued with Xiao Zijin, he would beat and scold him. It was just that he gently followed his wishes. If he didn't want to eat, he might not have food for a day. If he couldn't go to the toilet, he could only pee on the bed. Ning Shu specially made a sitting toilet for Xiao Zijin to make him more comfortable when he went to the toilet. Xiao Zijin was comfortable and accepted it a little, indicating that he was different from ordinary people. He was special. After being hungry and embarrassed, Xiao Zijin naturally chose to make his life better. He became a straightforward person who said what he needed. But in this way, his dignity as a prince almost didn't exist. Subconsciously, he needed to rely on his wife. At this time, he wouldn't give his princess consort a hard time, and he didn't dare to be high and mighty. Such a soft knife was usually the unlucky one. There was once a day when he didn't drink a drop of water. Xiao Zijin was so hungry that he almost ate his quilt. Xiao Zijin had never been hungry, let alone experienced the taste of hunger. The emptiness in his stomach made Xiao Zijin want to grab anything to eat. His mind was crazy about eating. He was so hungry that his body was weak and trembling with cold sweat. This was a situation of low blood sugar. At this time, the princess consort brought a bowl of minced meat porridge over. This was the best thing he had ever eaten. After experiencing it a few times, Xiao Zijin directly said what he wanted to eat and do. Accepting help from others meant admitting one's own incompetence. Xiao Zijin felt that she was losing her dignity and territory inch by inch. There would be a day when she would have nothing left. This was a very frightening thing. No matter what kind of person Xiao Zijin was, Ning Shu was always gentle and never gave Xiao Zijin a hard time. But in Xiao Zijin's heart, this guy was a terrifying person. He could gently order people not to give him anything. Even if he said that he wouldn't eat anything, sometimes he said it out of anger. He didn't want to eat anything and didn't want to live anymore. He really wasn't going to eat it. When he said that he didn't want to live anymore, she immediately ran into the palace and cried to her imperial grandfather, saying that he didn't want to live anymore. At this time, the emperor would definitely reprimand him. "Emperor, you don't want to live anymore. Do you still deserve to be a prince? If you want to die, you should die early so that you don't disgrace the royal family's reputation." Xiao Zijin was speechless. Gradually, Xiao Zijin would not say that he did not want to live anymore. Moreover, he did not dare to die. Ning Shu raised Hong-er. He often carried Hong-er to Xiao Zijin and asked him to treat his son gently. This was his son. Give his son a good look. Don't be angry, the child will be afraid. At this time, Xiao Zijin had no choice but to grin and reveal a stiff and awkward smile. Although Hong Er was still not close to him, he would not cry when he saw him. Moreover, Ning Shu was not worried that Xiao Zijin would hold the child and reminisce about the sweetness. He clearly told Xiao Zijin not to mention his sister. When the child grew up, he would directly tell the child that his mother was dead. Don't speak ill of his mother. What could Xiao Zijin say? Nothing. Moreover, if he spoke ill of his mother in front of the child would only become more and more distant from Xiao Zijin. This task was almost done. It was just that the world's origin was not found. In any case, a world's origin came. She had not seen a world's origin for a long time. World's origin was not too much. The more the better. Even if she didn't use it, she could sell it for money. Money was never too much. When he thought that he would have to raise skeletons in the future, Ning Shu felt that he was a poor ghost. No matter how much money he had, it was not enough. And even if he did not need to raise skeletons now, if he borrowed skeletons from His Excellency, he would have to pay the skeletons. When he thought of the skeletons that ate the golden nuggets, Ning Shu felt that what they ate was not merit, but her flesh and blood. Ning Shu scanned the entire prince's mansion. He did not find the world's origin. He could not look for the world's origin everywhere. Ning Shu sighed. The world seemed to be giving birth to more and more world's origin. The problem with the Sea of Law was directly shown. If the Sea of Law really had a problem, the bugs that ate the plane would probably starve to death. At this time, he should find them to think of a solution. There was no reason to only eat and not care about the future. Did they not understand the path of sustainable development? There were intelligent creatures over there. The low end of evolution were monsters that only knew how to eat. But those on the plane were very intelligent. Ning Shu's finger tapped on the table. He did not know what the organization was planning. Ning Shu glanced at Xiao Zijin, who was sitting in the wheelchair and eating. Now Xiao Zijin was also living in boredom. She did not have the courage to die. Thinking of her illness, she could die at any time. The feeling of death followed her like a shadow. Before she went to sleep, she would never know if she could see the sun tomorrow. Xiao Zijin would not suddenly die, but being treated as a special person and being treated specially, she felt very uncomfortable. Like a flawed person who hoped that others would treat her as an ordinary person and did not need special treatment. This kind of dignity sometimes overrode the body. 2333, Mission completed. Do you want to leave the mission world? Ning Shu picked up Hong, who was walking unsteadily, kissed her, then put her down and entered the room. When the soul left the body would temporarily be in a state of death. Lie down before leaving. Ning Shu laid on the chaise lounge and said, "Leave the world." Ning Shu's soul shook and left the body. Soon, he did not feel anything at all. Returning to the system space, Ning Shu felt that his soul did not feel tired from completing a mission. It was probably because of the water droplet on his forehead. Ning Shu sat on the sofa and asked 2333, "Is it because of the law of life, when I enter the body of a mission enforcer, will it cause damage to the mission enforcer's body?" When a foreign soul enters the body, it will always cause a certain degree of damage to the body. /BK Chapter 2771 2333, I guess that's the case. Moreover, under the nourishment of the law of life, it might have affected one's lifespan. Ning Shu raised his eyebrows. It should be a good influence. Since it was nurtured, its lifespan might increase. 2333, yes, it's a good thing. It won't wear and tear and will increase your lifespan a little. As for how much, I don't know. That's good. If there's no wear and tear, then he might be able to gain some benefits in terms of mission completion. Ning Shu opened the attribute panel. Name, Ning Shu. Age, 27. Level, Super Mission Taker. Points card, 432 plus 20, 10 million points per card. Soul value, 38 plus 2 HP, 34 plus 2 Wisdom, 40 plus 2 Luck, 40 plus 2 Charm, 33 plus 2 Spiritual Power, 44 plus 2 Combat Power, 39 plus 2 Aptitude, 42 plus 2 Faith, 6,119,940 plus 12,000 Merit, 17, 255, 000 Soul Strength, 150 Authorization Ticket, plus 1 Pure Heart, None Law Comprehended, Water Elemental Law, Water Elemental Law Incarnation, Wood Law, Incarnation of Wood Law, Space Law Constructed World, Reincarnation World. Items, Calming Halo, Calming Pill, Faith Halo, Amulet 4, Upgraded Amulet plus 2. Honorary titles, Goddess of War, Selfless Ancestor Skills, 5th Ring Shooting Technique, Level Close Combat Technique, Minor Achievement in Peerless Martial Arts, Level Poison Technique, Low-Level Business Management Knowledge, Beginner Code Programming, Beginner Lawyer Skill, Heavenly Master Ghost Catching Skill, Beginner Cooking Skill, Level Embroidery Skill, Trash Hypnosis. Aura, Mother of the World, Queen's Blessing, Sister Model Worker, Chen-Shi's Blessing, Leader Aura, Grass Blessing, Best Friend of a Lifetime, Miao Miao Miao's Blessing, Life-Saving Hand, Zhu Sun-Yang's Blessing, Founding Woman, Chen Ermiai's Blessing, Beauty in Law, Chen Ning's Blessing, Bane of the Blood Clan, Jasmine's Blessing, Transcendental Race Communication, Bai San Yang's Blessing, Brave Heart, Wang Ying's Blessing, Bloodthirsty Tyrant, Ni Bingyan's Blessing, Heart of Peace and Joy, Luck Halo, Faith Halo, and Longevity. Ning Ani's wish was fulfilled. Mission completion rate, 100%. Mission rewards obtained, 30 point cards, 16 attribute points, 80% of soul power, 1,200 faith power, including accumulated in previous worlds. Additional reward, 10% soul power. Where did this extra item come from? Generally speaking, obtaining 80% of soul power was already the limit. 10% of the soul energy contributed by the mission giver would be given to the system, while the remaining 90% would be given to the mission giver based on the mission giver's progress. Give me an exception. In any case, the main system would definitely take away a portion of his soul energy. If it was 80%, then it would be 2,333 for one share for the main system, and 8 for her. Did the main system not want the extra 10%, or was it taken away from him? The main system and 2,333 would never give up their own part to her. Therefore, this extra portion was probably given by the client. Ning Shu raised his eyebrows and didn't say anything. That meant that the client was satisfied with the mission. As long as she didn't resent her man. Some people were very protective of their children. Although they had been hurt by men, it was not right for them to make their men so miserable. Ning Shu sat cross-legged and absorbed the soul energy. He felt quite satisfied. His soul had become stronger by a little. However, he didn't dare to make his soul too strong. If it was too strong, it would hinder the mission. If it was too strong, a normal body wouldn't be able to withstand it. Ning Shu picked up the black bone umbrella and planned to go to Water City and Wood City. Every time he returned from a mission, the most important thing was to see if there were any problems with these two law cities. She didn't pay taxes for 200 years and had to work for free. Ning Shu's heart was very against it, quite against it. However, he couldn't not do it. If he didn't do it, the city lord's medal would be confiscated. He couldn't stay in the city lord's mansion anymore. With the city lord's mansion, he would have a place to stay in the law cities. For example, sleeping on the streets was better than sleeping. Ning Shu first went to Water City to check and repair it, then went to Wood City to let the law imprint absorb energy. During the mission, the law imprint of wood was always burning. Compared to the law of water, the law of wood was especially delicate. Ning Shu stayed in the city lord's mansion for a while and left. After patrolling the two law cities, he was now going to the world of reincarnation to check on the situation there. He also wanted to get some soul fluid. He didn't know how the pig man he helped before had grown up. Ning Shu felt that it would take him a few days just to go to each place. Ning Shu looked at the surface of the black bone umbrella. It seemed to be a little grayer than before and was faintly developing in the direction of black. Should he buy a new one? He would use it this time and buy it next time. Ning Shu returned to the system space and entered the unique martial arts. He threw in a large piece of star stone standing on the shore of the Law of Nothingness lake. The star stone was instantly swallowed and disappeared. However, the unique martial arts had changed. The unique martial arts that used to be quite big was now getting smaller and smaller. The world became smaller. Why did it become smaller? Of course, the bigger the world, the better. There was no such thing as condensing the essence of the world. It had obviously become smaller. What was going on? When it was in tatters, the world didn't shrink. It didn't make sense that after it was repaired, the world became smaller. Ning Shu couldn't figure it out. He felt that it was cute. Could the world become bigger or smaller at will? He should find a chance to ask people what was going on. The world couldn't shrink anymore. Although the unique martial arts was her world, she didn't know about the changes in the unique martial arts. She didn't know that this was a world of faith. The world couldn't speak, so she didn't know about the world situation. Hopefully, it was a good change. But it couldn't get any smaller. Ning Shu was ready to add some life to the world and prepare for a green rain. Her world hadn't given birth to any living creatures yet because the current world wasn't suitable for the birth of living creatures. How could she give birth to any living creatures if she didn't have anything suitable to live in? Moreover, there was the law of nothingness that could collapse at any time. It swallowed everything. Even if a living creature was born, it could also be swallowed. Moreover, the spatial tunnel she built now was trash. If a living creature was born, its soul would have to enter the world of reincarnation. Without a tunnel, how could it enter? Ning Shu didn't want her world to become like the deformed world in the Nine Palace Mountain. In short, with all the conditions combined, it was a good thing that her world didn't give birth to any living creatures. Ning Shu cast the green rain, but this time, it was milky white rain. Milky white? Could it be that it had mutated because of the law of life? The milky white drizzle fell on the ground. Even the sand wasn't wet. It ended very quickly. It probably wasn't enough. Ning Shu touched the water droplet in between her eyebrows. She felt that there were still many things waiting for her to discover. /BK Chapter 2772. The milky white water droplets were probably what the carpenter uncle wanted. Ning Shu's heart ached when he thought about it. How much would the water droplets she made be worth? How much would that be? She was just throwing money around. He couldn't suck it in. Ning Shu clutched his aching heart and went out of the world. Oh my God, I can't think about it, I can't think about it. Ning Shu took the Peerless Martial Art book and inspected it back and forth. There was not a single crack on the Peerless Martial Art book. Why did the world shrink? Now the book couldn't be flipped open. There were no more pages. Her world wasn't like the silver-haired man's. The silver-haired man's book was so cool. The pages were all attacking weapons. Ning Shu thought that his book could create a world like the silver-haired man's. Unfortunately, it didn't. There was only one world and it was still shrinking. Why did it start to cause trouble again? Anyway, whenever something happened, Ning Shu would be alarmed. He didn't know if something would happen to the world. Ning Shu put down the book and went to the world of reincarnation with the black bone umbrella. Just checking these things took a lot of work. Walking into the black hole, Ning Shu found that a new world had grown. Ning Shu was numb to this. In any case, he was constantly evolving the world, but he did not evolve the rebirth pool. No matter how many worlds you create, it wouldn't be as meaningful as the rebirth pool. One more world meant one more portion of soul energy to feed. Could the rebirth pool afford it? Ning Shu's heart was also exhausted. Walking to the rebirth pool, he asked Li Si, "Is there an evil beast?" Even if there was, he hoped that it wouldn't be born so soon. Li Si shook his head, "There's nothing for now." "Don't worry. Don't worry." No, no, no. She wasn't worried at all. She was worried to death. She had so many things to worry about. "Then you take a good look. If there's anything, inform me immediately." Ning Shu stood beside the rebirth pool and watched some souls jump in. Some had a pained expression, some had a numb expression, and some had a yearning expression. There were also some non-human animal souls that jumped in. Non-human or wandering souls like these were especially susceptible to the temptation of the rebirth pool. Weak souls like these could only be reborn as weak living beings in the afterlife. Unless there was a fortuitous encounter, it was basically impossible to strengthen one's soul. With each reincarnation, the soul grew weaker and weaker until it was finally destroyed. The toxins removed from these souls would form calamity beasts. Ning Shu felt sad and happy at the same time. He was sad because of the calamity beast, and happy because his soul jumped in and extracted a portion of his soul power, which could be used to support the world of reincarnation. Ning Shu wondered if the main system's device for purifying soul power was an imitation of the pool of rebirth. The pool of rebirth could remove the poison from the pool of souls. The soul power offered by the client was turbid, and the main system needed to purify the soul power. Ning Shu circled around the reincarnation pool. If she could figure out how the reincarnation pool worked, wouldn't she be able to purify soul fluid, soul stones, and soul origin fluid in the future? If he could purify it himself, he wouldn't have to give up a part of it. That would be great. The problem was that he didn't know. Could it be that the water of the reincarnation pool worked? Even if he poured the soul fluid in and purified it, the problem was how to get the soul power out. He was bald. Who knew what the organization's purification device was like? Even if he asked, it wouldn't tell him. It was the same as asking how the skeleton of an abyssal prefect was born. Knowledge was monopolized. In order to obtain this knowledge, Ning Shu had to work hard. Ning Shu gave up on thinking about it. He was afraid that the purification device wasn't that simple. A portion of the soul power collected by the organization was actually used to supply the army. The army was also a soul, and it needed to strengthen the soul. Moreover, there was no limit to it. The stronger, the better. The army was really a money-eating monster. It ate soul power and merit. The skeleton of an abyssal prefect only ate merit. Ning Shu shook the dust off his skirt and gave Li Si a merit grain, telling him to guard it well. The golden color on Li Si's body was thicker now. Before, it was a faint golden color. Some parts of his body weren't symmetrical and were still white. Although it was still a faint golden color, it wasn't white and gold like vitiligo. His entire body was covered in a layer of faint golden color. At least, it was symmetrical. Even so, Ning Shu already felt that Li Si was a money-eating man. She was going to raise another man now. Ning Shu wanted to cover his face. What should he do? He couldn't afford it. Thinking about the thousands of wild men waiting for her to raise, Ning Shu chose death. Of course, not all the bones were male. There were also female ones. Thinking about the thousands of wild women waiting for her to raise, Ning Shu wanted to jump into the reincarnation pool. Li Si took the merit grain and put it in his mouth. Ning Shu's face turned green as he asked, "What taste is it?" Li Si was stunned. "It doesn't have any taste. It's white and a little hot. After eating it, my whole body feels as comfortable as if it's on fire." Ning Shu was speechless. After asking Li Si to guard the reincarnation pool, Ning Shu went to the second level. After going to the second level, she still had to go to the third level. After going to the third level, she still had to go to the fourth level. This time, she wanted to see if she could enter the fifth level. She didn't know what kind of shock the fifth level would give her. In short, because the Nine Palace Mountain didn't have a world of reincarnation, it gave birth to a smaller world. This was something that had never been seen in other planes. Holding the black bone umbrella, Ning Shu entered the second level. Along the way, she went to find Yilin. When she encountered the refinement of soul fluid, she snatched it and destroyed the device. Where did the man who created this model go? Why didn't he appear? Why was soul fluid being refined everywhere now? How did this kind of array formation spread everywhere? Even so, the number of souls captured was less than half of what it used to be. In the past, when souls were trapped in a city, they couldn't escape even if they wanted to. Now, everyone lived in an open area. When people died, their souls couldn't be captured immediately. Some souls were spared from the evil hands. Ning Shu relied on her exceptional martial arts to sense and found Yilin and Bai Sisi. The two of them were in a sorry state. They were injured and surrounded by a group of people. Ning Shu held the umbrella and slowly floated down from the sky in front of Yilin and Bai Sisi. She looked at the people surrounding the two of them. There were all kinds of sect uniforms, as well as some itinerant cultivators. When Yilin saw Ning Shu, his eyes lit up. He immediately shouted, "Master!" When the people surrounding the two of them saw Ning Shu, some of the perverted men immediately shouted, "Where did this bitch come from? Get lost!" Ning Shu exclaimed, "Why? Don't you recognize me after changing clothes? Look carefully, I'm a red-clothed demoness. So many people are bullying my disciple. Are you trying to kill me? Red-clothed demoness, why is she here? She hasn't appeared in a long time." Ning Shu played with the umbrella and looked at these people. She asked, "There must be a reason why so many people are surrounding my disciple/BK. Chapter 2773. Red Demoness, why don't you ask your disciple what he did? A disciple pointed at Yilin and said. Ning Shu looked at him, "How can I not know what my disciple did? I'm asking you." Being stared at by Ning Shu, the disciple's face trembled. "He's wanted. He destroyed a lot of equipment and stole other people's soul fluid." Ning Shu replied, "So what, my disciple is doing a good deed. He's liberating his soul and not letting it turn into soul fluid." Ning Shu said. "Bah, robber's actions. You can make it sound so righteous. You're indeed a demoness and her disciple. Jackals of the same tribe, colluding together." Another disciple sneered, his face full of ridicule. Ning Shu twirled the umbrella, "All right, if I tell you the truth, no one will believe me. Since you don't believe me, I will definitely support my disciple's actions." Demoness is a demoness, so arrogant, the surrounding people were discussing. "Master, many sects are looking for me. There's even a sacred envoy looking for Sisi's whereabouts." Yilin whispered. "Oh, this is the rhythm of going against the whole world." Ning Shu said directly, "What's there to be afraid of? I'll support you. If that sect is looking for you, we'll fight our way to their mountain gate." Yilin did not have much hope for his elusive master. Who knows when she'll appear? Ning Shu's arrogant words stirred up the surrounding people's indignation. If it was said that they came to take the two's heads because of the generous reward, now they wanted to kill Yilin because of their sense of justice. Yilin wiped his face and said to Ning Shu, "Master, let's break through first. We'll talk about the rest later. Today, none of you can leave." He heard that the demoness in red was powerful, but there were so many people here. There were elite sect disciples and powerful rogue cultivators. He did not believe that the three of them could escape. Ning Shu closed the black bone umbrella and said, I have already memorized the names of all your sections. If there is an opportunity, I will visit each of your sects one by one. The faces of the sect disciples turned ugly. Was this considered a threat? He had never seen such a shameless person. How could he be so reasonable when he snatched someone else's stuff? However, when they heard that the red-clothed demoness was going to pay a visit to the sect, the hearts of these disciples still gave birth to a sense of fear. Wherever he went, he was a destructive maniac. If his sect was destroyed, wouldn't he be ridiculed by others? There was simply no justice in this world. Ning Shu carried one person in each hand and immediately jumped through space, disappearing from the encirclement. Just like that, he disappeared. Some of the cultivators with higher cultivation saw this and immediately cursed in their hearts. This was teleportation, a spell that could cover 1,000 miles in a single step. Not to be trifled with, not to be trifled with. Some loose cultivators had the intention to retreat. If they were targeted by the red-clothed demoness, they would definitely be out of luck. The faces of the sect disciples turned ugly. Some of them used jade stones to record the situation and brought it back to the sect elders to see. Ning Shu stopped and released the two people. He opened the black bone umbrella again and looked at the young couple. Didn't you want to establish a sect? Why haven't you made any progress yet? You are being chased everywhere. This disciple has established it. However, as of now, the sect only has the two of us. Yi Lin scratched his head and said. Ning Shu. It was indeed quite pitiful. He even had the entire world as his enemy. Master, this is the soul fluid I have collected recently. I will give it all to you. Yi Lin took out the soul fluid. Ning Shu saw that the amount was not small. How much did you rob? In order to build up the sect's reputation, I broke a lot of equipment. Yi Lin said. Ning Shu kept the soul fluid and asked, did you drink this soul fluid? Yi Lin shook his head. I didn't drink it. That was a living soul. He couldn't drink it. Ning Shu nodded. I didn't drink it properly. This kind of thing will pollute the soul. If I drink it directly, I will be finished. It is easy to be affected by the negative things inside and go berserk. What is your sect called? Ning Shu asked. In any case, it was his disciple's sect. He wanted to know the name. Did she have to give a gift to establish a sect? Ning Shu thought again. What did she have to give him? Was it something that Yi Lin needed? Yi Lin, it is called the Hall of Soul Life. The name is not bad. Ning Shu nodded. He was thinking about what gift to give. What weapon do you like to use? Speaking of which, Yi Lin didn't have a weapon. Moreover, Yi Lin had collected a lot of soul fluid for her. She wanted to return the favor by giving him a powerful weapon. Yi Lin waved his hand and said, Master, I don't need a weapon. I can release a lot of energy now. Ning Shu looked at the sword at his waist. Then I will give you a sword. Yi Lin didn't refuse. He cupped his hands. Thank you, Master. Ning Shu asked 2333 to find a sword. It would be best if it was a pair of Mandarin duck swords. He wanted to give it to Yi Lin and Bai Sisi. Soon, Ning Shu had two swords in his hand. He gave them to Yi Lin. One for each of you. Two people will be more powerful. This is a pair of lovers' swords. This thing wasn't cheap. It cost 40,000 merit points. It was almost enough to buy the black bone umbrella. Thank you, Master. Thank you, Senior. Yi Lin and Bai Sisi both took out their swords. The two drew their swords, reflecting a snow-white light. The two swords vibrated slightly. Yi Lin channeled his energy into the swords and slashed at a tree. A huge, muscular bull ran out from the sword and charged at the tree. The surrounding trees were knocked to the ground. Amazing. Thank you, Master. Yi Lin touched the swords. His face showed that he liked them. It's good that you like them. Master, I'm going now. Be careful. Don't die. Yes. The young couple cupped their hands and bowed to Ning Shu. These two were actually a couple of thieves. Wherever they went, they would steal soul fluid. Ning Shu encouraged Yi Lin. Don't be shaken. Master can tell you that everything you do is right. Don't give up just because you stand against the majority. You are right. Bai Sisi wanted to say something but stopped. In the end, she didn't say anything. In her moral values, this wasn't right. Bai Sisi was worried that Yi Lin was being used by others to collect soul fluid for them. What was the difference between Yi Lin's master's actions and those of those who refined soul fluid? The problem was that he was trying to brainwash Yi Lin. You are right. You are right. In the end, it was all for the sake of obtaining soul fluid. Those sects were so angry that they wanted to kill Yi Lin. It wasn't because Yi Lin was going around stealing soul fluid and causing their sects to suffer losses that they wanted to kill Yi Lin. Yi Lin's situation was quite bad. Moreover, she was a danger. The sects would even send sacred envoys to capture her. At this time, as a master, he was still encouraging his disciple to go against the majority. This was a fake master and disciple relationship. Bai Sisi didn't understand. Why did Yi Lin really think that his master was right, /BK? Chapter 2774. Bai Sisi's mind was flooded with comments. She felt that there was something wrong with this master of Yi Lin's. She had given him a weapon so that Yi Lin would willingly collect soul fluid for her. She had even refused to let Yi Lin absorb the soul fluid. Bai Sisi had never used soul fluid before, so she didn't know if it was true that he had gone berserk. For Yi Lin's sake, Bai Sisi couldn't stand by and watch him get tricked by her master again and again. Right now, Yi Lin was surrounded by enemies. Although Yi Lin was quite strong, he wasn't strong enough to go against the entire world. If many experts joined forces, Yi Lin definitely wouldn't be able to handle it. How could he withstand the attacks of so many people with the weapon his master had given him? Bai Sisi felt that if Yi Lin hadn't been killed by experts, then he had been tricked to death by his master. Bai Sisi wanted to say something, but hesitated. She glanced at Yi Lin, who was flipping the sword over and over again. She cupped her hands to Ning Shu and said, "Senior, can we talk?" Ning Shu asked, "About what?" "About Yi Lin," Bai Sisi said. "Let's go to the side and talk." Bai Sisi didn't want Yi Lin to know what she was talking about with his master. Ning Shu raised his eyebrows. He held the umbrella and followed Bai Sisi to the side. "What do you want to talk to me about? What do you want to talk about Yi Lin?" Bai Sisi's expression was a bit awkward. She said, "Senior, you can continue to lie to Yi Lin." Ning Shu was bored to death, but he didn't get angry. He asked in return, "What did I lie to him about?" "If he thinks I lied to him, he'll ask me immediately." "There's no need for you to ask me. You're his master. A son shouldn't blame his father. He definitely won't ask you about it." Ning Shu snorted. "You're underestimating Yi Lin too much. Besides, why would I lie to him? Lying takes energy." Bai Sisi bit her lip. "Naturally, it's for the soul fluid. It's to get Yi Lin to help you find it." Ning Shu twirled the handle of the umbrella. "If I really wanted to find the soul fluid, I could have done it myself. I didn't need Yi Lin's help. It was Yi Lin who took the initiative to help me find it. Don't say that I lied to him. He knows very well whether or not he was lied to. Then, when you incited Yi Lin to go against so many people, did you not consider his safety?" Ning Shu's expression was indifferent. Even if he went against so many people, would he be as dangerous as the sacred emissary from your sect? You're also a troublemaker. You and I are the same. As for what Yi Lin has done, if I say he's right, then he's right, even if others don't agree with him. Now, Yi Lin's body was faintly glowing with the golden light of merit. This was a genuine merit. It allowed many people to have the opportunity to enter the world of samsara and be reborn. This was a lot of merit. Bai Sisi saw Yi Lin snatch the soul fluid and destroy the device used to refine it. Since there was the soul fluid, why not take it and throw it away? The soul fluid was just incidental. Did she really think that what Yi Lin did with her was just for a little bit of soul fluid? Bai Sisi bit her lip. No matter what, I don't want to see him hurt. It's a good thing he did. If you really have any doubts, you can ask him instead of me. Ning Shu didn't intend to say much to his disciple's girlfriend. If he said too much, it would turn into her trying to break up the couple. What are you talking about? Yi Lin put his sword back into the scabbard and walked over to ask, why do you look so serious? Bai Sisi shook her head. Nothing. Ning Shu said, she thinks I lied to you and tricked you into finding the soul fluid. Bai Sisi, was it really okay to be so direct? Yi Lin, out of the blue, a fatal question had appeared. If he scolded his wife in front of his master, she would lose face. Moreover, his wife had gone to ask his master for his sake. If his master was unhappy, he might even hurt her. If she went to question someone with a higher cultivation than her, she would face the consequences of being beaten up. But if she didn't make things clear, his master would still smile coldly and face the consequences of being beaten up. It was time to test her EQ. Yi Lin smiled and said to Bai Sisi, no such thing. I'll tell you what happened in private. Bai Sisi glanced at Ning Shu and nodded without saying anything. Yi Lin said to Ning Shu, I didn't tell her about this. She doesn't know the reason. Ning Shu grunted. Take care of yourself. I'm leaving. Anyway, they had obtained a lot of soul fluid, and Bai Sisi had helped Yi Lin a lot. Ning Shu wouldn't bicker with a junior. She was Yi Lin's little girlfriend, so she was his junior. He had to show the magnanimity of an elder. Then, Master, take care. He cupped his hands and said to Ning Shu. Ning Shu held the black bone umbrella and disappeared. Yi Lin let out a long breath and wiped the cold sweat on his head. He felt like he was sandwiched between his mother and wife. It was like walking on a tightrope. If he wasn't careful, he would fall to pieces. Ning Shu entered the world of the third level. The world of the third level was flourishing. Many laws were being perfected. It was full of vitality. Ning Shu stretched out his hand and collected several pure white threads of faith power. He put them away and walked around the world to take a look. There was no need for her to do anything now. This world could continue on its own. That was awesome. Entering the fourth level, Ning Shu couldn't help but want to cover her eyes when she saw the beast men with various animal heads. According to her senses, she found the pig people who had delivered the babies. These pig people had grown up so quickly. This speed, they probably took hormones. How could they grow so fast? It felt like delivering babies was just yesterday. Halfway through, she just picked up trash and did missions. How could these pig people who had just been delivered have grown up and were about to give birth again? This speed. The lifespan of the beast men was too short. Ning Shu didn't plan to go up and acknowledge them. After all, the beast men were famous for having no intelligence. If she appeared in front of the female pig person who had delivered the babies, her husband probably wouldn't recognize her. After all, she had changed her clothes. If she changed her identity, they wouldn't recognize her. Ning Shu formed a seal with both hands and opened her heavenly eye. She saw the souls of humans and beast men intertwined and reincarnated. When this world was connected to the world of reincarnation, the beast men would disappear. But she didn't know how long she would have to wait. After all, the space tunnel she built was relatively weak. Even if she managed to build it, it wouldn't take long. By then, there would be a lot of trouble. Ning Shu decided to wait until she could build a more stable space tunnel. Anyway, this mode had existed for so long. There was no hurry. It was useless to be anxious. The space tunnel couldn't be built quickly. The beast men were relatively lowly and didn't have much intelligence. They were ignorant and did physical work. Their little physical strength allowed them to survive in this world and not starve to death. Chapter 2775. After seeing the world on the 4th level, Ning Shu planned to enter the 5th level. Although the world was a bit deceitful, Ning Shu was still secretly looking forward to it. Maybe there would be something good on the 5th level. If there wasn't, she could accept it. She would be satisfied with just one look. However, Ning Shu couldn't enter the 5th level even after squeezing for a while. Why couldn't she enter the 5th level? She wanted to see what kind of world it was. Could it be that the 5th level was some special world? Or was it that the heavenly axiom of the 5th level didn't allow her to enter? She could enter and exit the previous world as she wished because the heavenly axiom ignored her existence. When there was nothing to do, it could even make use of her. However, she couldn't enter the 5th level even after trying a few times. The more it didn't allow her to enter, the more curious Ning Shu became. Ning Shu tried to enter the 5th level again, but she couldn't enter. Fine, if it didn't allow her to enter, she would enter one day. She didn't have much, but she had a lot of time. As long as it wasn't empty like the world on the 3rd level, she would definitely need the world of reincarnation. Even if the world was connected to the world of reincarnation, there would still be some side effects that needed to be dealt with. I'm not in a hurry, not in a hurry at all. After patrolling all the places that needed to be patrolled, Ning Shu's heart felt a little more at ease. The moment she returned to the system space, the chat system rang. Ning Shu had a very strong intuition that it must be asking her to pick up rubbish. She didn't send messages when she was doing missions. She would only send messages when she was done. She didn't feel anything at all. The main system knew clearly whether she was doing missions or not. She strongly requested the system to add a privacy option. She felt that her actions were clear to others. Ning Shu remembered that she seemed to have blocked it before. Why didn't it work now? Closing the black bone umbrella, Ning Shu refused to open the chat system. She clearly didn't have the right to pick up rubbish now. After all, her understanding of the spatial laws was terrible. In her situation, she should be kicked out of the rubbish-picking team. She couldn't set a precedent. Otherwise, how could she convince the masses? However, the rubbish-picking bosses didn't seem to be willing. Ning Shu sat on the sofa and opened the chat system. As expected, it was from the main system asking her to pick up rubbish. The main system, please complete the volunteer activity. Ning Shu was speechless. I refused. I had already picked up rubbish many times. There were planes collapsing every day. Could it be that he was going to pick them up until the end of time? However, when he thought of his own world, Ning Shu still decided to go. After all, asking the silver-haired man would require money, and there were so many big shots picking up trash. He didn't even need to pay for asking. Ning Shu clicked on the chat interface of Senior Uncle Tai, saying that he had applied to pick up trash, but he couldn't get through now. If not for the fact that he was picking up trash, Ning Shu felt that it would be better to go and comprehend the laws of space. Why was it so difficult to comprehend the laws of space? Ning Shu felt uncomfortable all over. When would he be able to construct a large and sturdy spatial tunnel? It didn't take long for a passage to appear in front of Ning Shu. Ning Shu followed the passage to the plane. As soon as he came out, debris floated everywhere. Ning Shu took the bag and began to pick up the fragments. He glanced at Grand Elder, who was handling the star stones, and moved over while picking up the fragments. Grand Elder, I won't give you the star stones. Ning Shu's expression was very serious. I'm not here to ask for star stones. I'm not the kind of person who would die for star stones. Grand Elder, Ning Shu hesitated for a moment before asking, I have something to ask you. Grand Elder nodded. Sure. If it's a difficult question, your reward this time will be offset. Ning Shu. She was really wrong. She thought that she could get rid of the fate of asking questions and paying money here. Obviously, it was impossible. She felt that he had learned from the silver-haired man, so he had learned to ask questions and ask for money. It was the same as the silver-haired man. Ning Shu said, it's not a difficult question. It's just that my world is becoming smaller. Why is that? Grand Elder didn't even raise his head as he dealt with the star stones. Then your world is going to be cold. Ning Shu. It was as if she was strangling his neck. Can you be more serious? I'm asking seriously. Grand Elder raised his head and pushed up his glasses. If I don't answer seriously, it's basically over. No, I'm going to suffocate. I can't breathe again. Ning Shu felt that this answer was too perfunctory. It wasn't the answer she wanted. Why? Ning Shu asked. It's the same reason as muscle atrophy. Ning Shu shook her head. I don't quite understand. There are many reasons for muscle atrophy. For example, if she was sick and was bedridden all year round, she didn't use her muscles. Her muscles were all shrinking. Also, when she was sick, her muscles would also atrophy. Malnutrition. Right. Ning Shu felt very tired. She still had to spend some money to ask the silver-haired man. Although the silver-haired man was a bit black-hearted, he wouldn't use uncertain words like, right. She felt that Grand Elder wasn't a professional in this area. Grand Elder, then your world will definitely be cold. Ning Shu was speechless. Ning Shu grabbed her bag and quickly slipped away. You want 100,000 merit points with such an answer? You want me to work for you for free? Dream on. Ning Shu happily picked up the trash and moved toward Fragrant Wind. Ning Shu. Ning Shu was about to talk to Fragrant Wind when she heard someone calling her. She turned her head and saw Mo Ming in a military uniform. Ning Shu immediately smiled and greeted him. You're here too. Mo Ming was trying his best to pull the plane like the others so that it wouldn't run away. She felt that the golden light on Mo Ming's body was even brighter. He should have earned a lot of merit points. And his soul was very strong, even stronger than hers. In the army, as long as one had the ability, merit points could be added to one's body and soul power could be absorbed at will. One wasn't afraid of being strong, but not strong enough. Unlike mission enforcers, who couldn't add merit points to themselves and couldn't make their souls too strong. She felt that Mo Ming would climb faster than her in the future. So what if he had strong luck? After greeting Mo Ming, Ning Shu asked Fragrant Wind a question about the world. Fragrant Wind was baffled. Your world has shrunk. How would I know why? You don't even know why, so why are you asking me? Ridiculous. It felt like your house collapsed, but you actually came to ask me why your house collapsed. How would I know why? Don't you know what your world is like? What a joke. Ning Shu rolled her eyes. I want to ask, will the world shrink when it happens? Fragrant Wind shook her head. No. Ning Shu, haven't you encountered such a situation before? Fragrant Wind, anyway, my world has never shrunk. Ning Shu sighed. Sure enough, people who didn't take money were unreliable. After receiving money, they should at least be worth the money. Chapter 2776. Ning Shu had already given up on asking. If he had the time and strength, it would be better for him to pick up the trash and ask the silver-haired man after picking up the trash. Ning Shu began to focus on picking up the trash. The more he picked up, the faster he would get. Ning Shu was worried about the world and just wanted to pick up the trash as soon as possible. Then he would spend some consulting fees to ask the silver-haired man. Ning Shu picked up bag after bag, tied them up, and opened them. Ning Shu picked up more, but the others picked less. Picking up fragments was not very tiring, but it was quite tiring to pick up too much. Since someone picked up more quickly, it didn't matter if they picked up slower. Ning Shu was happily picking up the trash while the others were picking up the trash casually. The grand uncle frowned. He was really not enthusiastic about work. Eating from the same pot was the most depressing thing. Anyway, if he didn't do it, there would be others. It was okay for him to be lazy. Besides, those who had comprehended the rules were not here to pick up trash. At this time, those who did more would be scolded as idiots. Ning Shu was such an idiot. When it was time to connect to the plane, Ning Shu waited below, waiting to pick up some leftover star stones. Although it wasn't much, a little was still a little. Maybe a catastrophe would be prevented because of a little more star stones in the future. So, the more the better. After picking up 2 drops of leftover materials, Ning Shu put them away and followed the others to the next place. In the space channel, Mo Ming asked Ning Shu, "Do you need star stones?" Ning Shu nodded worriedly. "Yes. Actually, General, and he has a lot of star stones in his hands." Of course, Ning Shu knew. Could it be that the extra star stones ended up in He's warehouse? He remembered that the army had taken the extra star stones away. Ning Shu tiptoed and looked at He, who was walking in front, to kill him with Cho Fu Guanghua. Mo Ming said, "Actually, these things can't be sold. If there are more in the future, quickly pick up 2 more pieces." Ning Shu nodded. "I know. You have more medals now." Mo Ming said, "Life in the army is not challenging. It's too boring." Ning Shu was speechless. "I don't know how to comfort you. Mission enforcers were constantly doing missions, and the army was constantly patrolling the plains. In any case, life was quite boring. However, he would become stronger." Soon, they arrived at the place where the plane had collapsed. This plane had been discovered early. Now, the entire plane's walls were filled with cracks. The plane was doomed. It was only a matter of time before the plane collapsed. There were already armies controlling the planes around the collapsed plane. Now, all they had to do was wait for the plane to collapse. Now that the plane had become like this, it must be like the end of the world in the plane. The earth was shaking, the mountains were shaking, and the volcanoes were erupting. In short, everything was destroyed. And he asked a man in military uniform, "Have the creatures inside been settled down?" "It's all settled down." At this time, all it took was a little bit of external force, a light poke, and the whole world would explode like glass. The grand uncle seemed to have set up a thick spatial wall around the plane to prevent the fragments of the plane from splashing everywhere and rushing to the next plane. Then, the grand uncle pulled out his gun and casually fired a shot at the plane that was about to shatter. The bullet penetrated the plane, but the plane did not react. After a while, the plane directly collapsed. This was a silent explosion. The huge force splashed the plane fragments everywhere. All kinds of things in the plane were instantly annihilated into ashes, leaving only pieces of plane fragments. This proved that this plane had once existed. Under the impact of the huge explosion, no one moved at all. The corners of their clothes fluttered in the wind. Ning Shu hurriedly tied up her skirt, causing her skirt to fly up in the wind. When the impact of the explosion was gone, everyone picked up the garbage bags and started picking up the garbage. The grand uncle said to everyone, "Don't be in a hurry to pick up the garbage. Since you feel that eating in a big pot will weaken your willpower, then let's contract it to everyone. After everyone picks up 100,000 fragments, you can leave. You don't have to worry about picking up too many fragments." You don't have to worry about being at a disadvantage. Everyone looked at each other. There were 100,000 fragments of different sizes. Moreover, it would take at least 5 worlds to pick up 100,000 fragments. It also depended on the speed of picking them up. If they were slow, they would have to keep picking them up. They could only leave after picking up enough fragments. At this time, not only did they have to pick up fast, but they also had to pick up more fragments. Otherwise, when everyone left, they would have to pick up fragments with the next group of people. How embarrassing would that be? If the big shots did not care about 100,000 merit points, this merit point was really nothing. If it was not mandatory, they would not have come at all. Now that there was such a rule, they had to work hard to pick up 100,000 fragments. As long as they picked up enough fragments, they could leave at any time. Relatively speaking, the benefits outweighed the disadvantages. 100,000 pieces. Ning Shu felt that it was really too much. They were going to waste their hands. Since you think it's okay, then let's do it, the grand uncle said calmly. The team did not feel anything before, but after some people were especially diligent, some people became more lazy. Laziness cancer was contagious. Okay. Everyone responded. They took the bags and started to pick up the trash. They were much faster than before. They all wanted to finish the task and leave quickly. When Mo Ming passed by Ning Shu, he said, "One bag can hold 20,000 fragments. You'll have completed the task if you pick up 5 bags." Ning Shu immediately nodded. Oh, okay. Mo Ming was arranged to control the plane that was still intact. Ning Shu carried the bag and ran very fast. He stuffed fragments into the bag. His speed was not slow. When the others saw that Ning Shu was fast, they had no choice but to speed up. If they did not pick up enough fragments, they would have to push to the next location again and again until the task was completed. Based on this woman's speed, if they did not hurry up, they would be finished in a while. She could complete the task quickly and leave, but they could not. They had to keep picking up fragments. The plane fragments disappeared at a very fast speed. They were all picked up and put into the bag. When the fragments were all gone, Ning Shu picked up 2 bags of fragments. These fragments had rules. Ordinary plane fragments were not counted. But ordinary plane fragments still had to be picked up. In total, he picked up 2 mouthfuls of rules and 2 bags of ordinary fragments. At this speed, he would be able to complete the task in 2 more times. Ning Shu sat down to rest, holding the blackened black bone umbrella. This time, the speed was quite fast. Everyone was rushing to do it. When the fragments were all picked up, the Grand Uncle's star stones had not been dealt with. Not only did they have to deal with the star stones on the fragments, but they also had to deal with the star stones inlaid on the plane wall. When they tore off the tape, there was also glue on the adhesive side. They also had to clean it up. Otherwise, it would not be easy to inlay the plane again. This work was quite tiring. Ning Shu would rather pick up trash. This time, the star stones were obviously not enough. Fragrant Wind immediately sent someone to the warehouse to bring some star stones over. Chapter 2777. After everyone had a specific number of fragments, they became more active. It was especially convenient for them to leave after they finished. Ning Shu picked up 3 times and successfully completed the task. She even picked up an extra bag. After picking up 100,000 fragments, her whole body felt comfortable. It was as if she was about to be sublimated. After Ning Shu picked up the leftovers of the star stones, she immediately said to the Grand Uncle, "My task is completed. Send me away." The Grand Uncle, completed? You picked up 100,000 fragments. Ning Shu nodded. I'm done. She couldn't say that she picked up an extra bag. If he were to say that capable people do more work, she wouldn't even be able to cry. With this time, she'd better comprehend the space law. If that didn't work, she'd do the task. She anxiously asked the silver-haired man what was going on in her world. It kept shrinking until it was only the size of a square inch. As an ordinary space, it couldn't even hold things, let alone give birth to living creatures. Therefore, Ning Shu was anxious. She had fed so much soul origin and finally repaired it, but now it was shrinking again. After investing so much, she really couldn't bear to give up this peerless martial art. She was very reluctant. If she could save it, she would save it. After all, she had invested so much, and she always wanted to get back her money. Ning Shu was almost like a gambler now. She always wanted to turn the tables. Others gambled on their feelings, while she gambled on her future. The grand-uncle didn't speak. Ning Shu said, "You can check if I've really completed the task. Do you want to pick up more?" The grand-uncle asked. Ning Shu shook her head without thinking. No. The grand-uncle's tone seemed to be asking if she wanted to play more, but the problem was that this wasn't playing. It was obviously very tiring. Could it be that she finished too quickly and was too eye-catching? A few people had already left, so she wasn't eye-catching. Ning Shu had a bad feeling in her heart. Was she going to be exploited for labor again? The grand-uncle asked, "I heard that you're comprehending the space law. How's it going?" Ning Shu, the person who usually ignored her, was suddenly so concerned about her situation and even asked about her progress. Ning Shu had already smelled the scent of a conspiracy. He cautiously said, "It's okay, it's okay. It's just a so-so." Senior uncle reached out and pushed up his glasses. The glasses reflected a cold luster, revealing a smile that he thought was more sinister. Ning Shu was speechless. "What are you laughing at? You haven't even comprehended the spatial passageway yet. You call this not bad?" The Grand Elder shook his head and said, "You're too immodest." Ning Shu was expressionless. "Then I didn't comprehend it well. Send me back. I still have things to do." Ning Shu glanced at Fragrant Wind. He would let Fragrant Wind send him away later. The Grand Elder asked, "Do you want to comprehend the law of space?" Ning Shu's heart sounded an alarm, and all the hair on his body stood on end. His whole body tensed up. Comprehension is up to fate. The Grand Elder pushed up his glasses. "How about this? I'll tell you some insights about the law of space. You can do it yourself." The alarm in Ning Shu's heart was even sharper. It was hysterical and especially loud. He hurriedly refused. "No, no, no. You're busy every day. How can I take up your time? It'll be just a while." "Ning Shu, fuck, don't laugh. My legs are weak." Ning Shu felt that he was being tricked, but he couldn't be greedy. He didn't plan to get any insights about the law of space from the Grand Elder. She had already torn up the original insights. She didn't want to get them from anyone else. The most important thing was that she couldn't understand the insights of that shit. Ning Shu felt that he might be defeated in the law of space. He probably didn't have the talent in this area, which caused his comprehension to be slow and awkward. It took a lot of time, but he gained little. It was very frustrating. Ning Shu asked directly, "What do you need me to do?" "Actually, it's not a big deal. Other people pick up 100,000, but you pick up 500,000 each time," the Grand Elder said. Ning Shu chuckled. "Why do I have more? 5 times more. You want me to work myself to death?" The Grand Elder, "No, it's based on your situation. 500,000 is fine. You can take 1,000,000 if you work harder." Ning Shu really wanted to spit in his face, but he held it back. "I pick up more, but the salary is the same." "Why?" He finally confirmed that he was being targeted. He wanted to make her work hard. Eat as much as others and do as much as others. Why? What a slut. Capable people do more work. This is an acknowledgement of your strength. If other people pick up 100,000 and you pick up 50,000, wouldn't you feel discriminated against? Don't insult it, the Grand Elder said. Fuck, stop talking. What he said was pure nonsense. Don't talk to me about dreams. My dream is to not pick up trash and get star stones. I don't need to prove my strength. Of course, I'll give you 100,000 more merit points. If you don't understand anything about merit points, you can ask me. Ning Shu curled her lips. This is like asking me to work. You want me to do 5 people's work. The benefit is to give me 100,000 more merit points and help me comprehend the space laws. If I really comprehend the space laws quickly, you won't have to open a space channel for me to work every time. Ning Shu said that she had seen many tricks and could see through this one at a glance. She could slowly comprehend the space laws. It was no big deal. It would just take a little more time. But this Grand Elder actually used this as a bargaining chip to make a deal with her. Even if she really comprehended the space laws quickly, the Grand Elder would be the one who would have an easy time. She wouldn't need him to build a space channel every time she came. In the future, he would be at her beck and call whenever she picked up trash. He would also build the space channel by himself. He was the only one who could do something like this that would reap huge profits with little capital. It was almost coaxing and cheating. Ning Shu wasn't so excited that someone would help her comprehend the space laws, so she agreed. Back then, when she hadn't made any progress in comprehending the space laws, she had endured it by sitting in the space city. Now, she was half a step into the door and was only 1 step away. The deal wasn't sincere. Ning Shu opened the black bone umbrella. The Grand Elder frowned and took a few steps back. Ning Shu smiled. Please send me back. I've already completed the task. If you think it's too troublesome, I'll find someone else. The Grand Elder raised his eyebrows. Don't you want to comprehend the space laws? Ning Shu turned the umbrella handle. Yes, I want to. Even in my dreams. But after thinking about it, comprehending the space laws is just building a space channel and making picking up trash more convenient. As for the 4th level of the 9 Palace Mountain, although it needed to be connected to the reincarnation world, that mode had existed for a long time. There wouldn't be any problems in a short time. Therefore, Ning Shu actually had a lot of time to comprehend the space laws /BK. Chapter 2778. Reading on the phone. As for whether she could pick up the trash, Ning Shu felt that it was better not to let her pick it up. After all, he had already gotten a lot of star stones. It didn't matter if she didn't pick up trash for a while. Therefore, there was nothing to ask in front of others. There was nothing to be afraid of. You want to trick me? Dream on. The Grand Uncle pointed his finger and constructed a space tunnel. Ning Shu got into the tunnel and turned around to wave at the Grand Uncle with a smile. I'm not afraid. The Grand Uncle was expressionless. He clenched his 5 fingers slightly, and the originally stable space tunnel began to collapse. Soon, it collapsed to Ning Shu's feet. Oh my God! Ning Shu almost jumped up and ran all the way while holding his long skirt. The tunnel behind him was collapsing as if the bridge was broken. If he fell, he could be submerged in an unknown place or in an unknown chaotic space and couldn't get out. It was also possible that it would be annihilated like the spatial passageway and disappear completely. When Ning Shu ran back to the system space, the space tunnel behind him had completely collapsed and no longer existed. TSK, TSK, TSK. She didn't succeed and became angry out of embarrassment. Ning Shu lay down on the sofa. Even so, it wouldn't scare her. At worst, he wouldn't let her pick up trash in the future. Let someone else build a space tunnel for him. Others 100,000, but she 500,000. Ha ha ha. Ning Shu just wanted to slap her. The chat system rang. Ning Shu opened the chat system. It was a message from the grand uncle. The content was the same as last time. He wanted the source of life. Ning Shu remembered the milky white raindrops in the ultimate martial arts. He took a glass container the size of a thumb and opened the lid. White water droplets condensed on his fingertips. He dripped 2 drops into the glass container, closed the lid, and shook it twice. The white water droplets shook twice in the container. They didn't touch the glass wall. Ning Shu showed this to the grand uncle. After the grand uncle saw it, he immediately asked, "Okay, what price do you want? This thing should be the only one with no other branches. She should be able to set a price for it." How much should it cost? Ning Shu thought for a moment and asked, "How much are you giving me?" They were all testing the other party's bottom line. What if they bid too low? "Eldest uncle, you set the price. It's up to you." Things were back to square one. Ning Shu kicked the ball back and said directly, "I don't know the price of this thing. You tell me." The eldest uncle probed, 1 million merit points. Ning Shu's price in his heart was 1 million to 2 million. After all, it was not a lot. Ning Shu agreed to the deal as a way to make a friend. Then, he turned to his uncle, who was holding the umbrella, and asked, "This umbrella is already black. Is there any way to turn it back to its original state? It can be recycled. It will clean up the things on it, just like washing clothes. It will clean up the dirty things on it." Eldest uncle said. Oh, there was such a function. Fortunately, he had asked about it. Otherwise, it would be such a waste of money if he threw it away and bought it again after using it. In the future, she would have to raise a lot of wild men, so she had to save some money. Even now, there was still Li Si waiting for her to take care of. What he ate was merit. Ning Shu handed the umbrella to his uncle and asked him to help deal with it. As for how much merit points would be needed, it would be easy to pay. Dealing with the dirty things on the umbrella required 10,000 merit points. 10,000 merit points was 40,000 less than 50,000 merit points. This way, he could save a lot of merit points. It would take some time to get the umbrella back. Ning Shu asked the main system for the reward for this volunteer work. 10,000 merit points was not a small amount. He could buy a lot of things. The main system, after 10 times of volunteer work, the reward will be given. Ning Shu, 10 times. Just how poor was the organization? It was obvious that they were in arrears of wages. The main system, 10 times, that's 1 million. That's a lot. Ning Shu, I want it now. I don't want to accumulate it. I don't want to buy things. I don't want to raise people. Obviously, the main system did not care about Ning Shu's complaints. If he said 10 times, then 10 times. Ning Shu just wanted to roll his eyes. He exchanged more than 20 merit grains and was ready to ask the skeleton for help if anything happened in the world of reincarnation. The current Li Si was not enough to deal with the disaster beast. Even if he could, he would not be able to do it alone. Skeletons, skeletons. Ning Shu felt that even if he could not raise an army, he could at least raise a few. Raising a few to guard the reincarnation pool in the world of reincarnation was also possible. But he did not know how to create skeletons. His Excellency did not tell him. Ning Shu wanted to experiment on his own, but he had no idea. Moreover, there were many things waiting for him to do. For example, doing missions, picking up trash, and comprehending the space law. He was stuck on the comprehension of the space law. Even if he comprehended the space law, there were many other laws waiting for him to comprehend. For example, time. Since space and time were high-level laws, he had comprehended the space law. Of course, he had to comprehend the time law as well. There was no harm in knowing a little. In short, there were many things waiting for him to do every day. Ning Shu had to do it step by step so that he would not panic. If he panicked, he would not be able to do anything well. What he had to do now was to take the Peerless Martial Arts book and find the silver-haired man to see what explanation he had. Ning Shu felt that it might be retribution. She had tormented the world of reincarnation so much before, and now it was the world of reincarnation tormenting her. She had lost money and was on tenterhooks. This life was simply unbearable. Ning Shu took the Peerless Martial Arts book and could not help but pat it. Finally, he sighed and went to the consultation room in Wood City. Walking into the consultation room, Ning Shu sat on the chair and waited for the silver-haired man to come out. After a while, the silver-haired man came out of the room. The silver-haired man sat down and saw the book in Ning Shu's hand. He could not help but frown. Is it about this world again? Ning Shu. Yes, it's about this world again. She did not want anything to happen to the world. Did he really think that she wanted to be troubled? The silver-haired man asked, "What do you want to consult this time?" Ning Shu said, "My world is shrinking." What's the reason? Is it because of the law of nothingness? The silver-haired man was silent for a while. The longer he was silent, the more uneasy Ning Shu felt. There was an indescribable depression in his heart. His heart was suffocating. The silver-haired man said slowly, "It stands to reason that the world will slowly grow bigger. It's rare to see it shrink. If it's rare, then it must be a case. Since the world can grow bigger, it should be normal for it to shrink." Ning Shu quickly asked. The silver-haired man, It's not normal. Ning Shu wanted to die. Why was it normal for it to grow bigger, but abnormal for it to shrink? Just like a balloon, it can be inflated and deflated. If you blow it again, it will grow bigger, right? Ning Shu gave a simple example. The silver-haired man shook his head. Your example itself is not appropriate. Have you seen children grow smaller and smaller? The space will grow bigger and bigger. When it grows to a certain extent, it will stop. This book came from the translator, Atlas Studios editor, Atlas Studios. Chapter 2779. There are also some that are fixed in size, but it's definitely not normal for it to become smaller. As for the reason, I don't know. Ning Shu was speechless. Money was no longer useful now. Ning Shu asked, "Is it because of the law of nothingness that this world was originally a world of faith?" The silver-haired man's expression was very serious. There's no precedent. If something happens, you'd better give up on your world. Ning Shu thought for a moment. If the world shrank to the size of the lake of the law of nothingness, and if the law of nothingness couldn't hold it, the world would disappear instantly. Then is there any way to prevent the world from shrinking? If this continued, her world would really be destroyed. The silver-haired man wasn't as anxious as Ning Shu. He just said, "The world of faith has the instinct to save itself. There's probably some reason that caused it to shrink. All actions and actions are instinctive to save the world. It's not necessarily a bad thing." Ning Shu sighed. He could only comfort himself in this way. Ning Shu looked at the silver-haired man. This person didn't know everything. There were also things that he didn't know. Since he didn't get any results, Ning Shu could only wait and see. He asked, "How much?" He didn't give a reason or a solution. He couldn't accept the price. The silver-haired man frowned. 10,000 merit points. Compared to more than 100,000, 10,000 merit points was really too cheap. But the silver-haired man said a few words that she didn't understand. Forget it. Good thing, probably. Bad thing, probably. You've said all the good and bad things. Every time you open your mouth, you'll get 10,000 merit points. Ning Shu was convinced. She would flood the screen with 666. Ning Shu paid the 10,000 merit points and said to the silver-haired man, "You'd better go back and check what's going on. Otherwise, your reputation will be ruined." The silver-haired man closed the book. "Thank you for the advice." Then he lifted the curtain and entered the room. After wasting 10,000 merit points, he didn't get anything out of the silver-haired man. Ning Shu was very frustrated. But the world of faith had the instinct to save itself. Ning Shu could only comfort himself. The peerless martial arts were actually saving itself. It was definitely saving itself. This was a good thing. Wah! Ning Shu hammered the ground. He couldn't comfort himself at all. Ning Shu returned to the system space and placed the book on the bookshelf. He sighed as he looked at it. This feeling was like a helpless old mother looking at her rebellious and pretentious son, helpless and heartbroken. Ning Shu picked up the AI beside him. The entire AI was black and square, just like a Rubik's Cube. But it didn't have the colors and blocks of the Rubik's Cube. It felt heavy in his hand. He remembered that he had lent this thing to a mission enforcer to deal with the aliens in the plane. He should have absorbed a lot of spiritual power. Ning Shu sank her consciousness into her brain and immediately felt a pain in her head. There was a spiritual force attacking the spiritual ball of her consciousness. The spiritual ball vibrated, and Ning Shu was in so much pain that he threw the brain away. Fuck, it hurts. Fuck, she just wanted to see how much spiritual power the brain had, she didn't expect to be attacked instead. Now, she was so miserable that even a square AI was bullying her. What was even worse was that the spiritual power of an AI was stronger than her spiritual power. The world was full of malice. Ning Shu said that life couldn't go on. After a while, the pain of the spiritual backlash disappeared a little, but there was still a faint pain. The physical pain was nothing, but the spiritual pain was real pain. Ning Shu picked up the AI on the ground and didn't dare to release his spiritual power to investigate. If the AI's counterattack was too strong, it would be enough to break her spiritual ball. If the spiritual power was weak, even the AI would bully it. But to increase the spiritual power, one had to rely on self-abuse to attack the spiritual ball. This kind of pain was too painful. It was enough to deprive the soul of power. The pain was still fresh in the memory. To make oneself suffer again and again, the person who could do it was quite ruthless. Only by being ruthless to oneself could one succeed. Ning Shu felt that it was better to slow down the stimulation of the spiritual ball and comprehend the spatial laws first. When he comprehended the spatial laws, not only could he build spatial passages, but he could also kill spatial wind blades, spatial storms, and kill enemies with a raise of his hand. That was quite relaxed and leisurely. This was a high-end fighting method. As for the 7-Injures Fist, which relied on physical combat and injury for injury, Ning Shu didn't even need to use it now. After mastering high-end fighting methods, he felt much more relaxed, but it was also quite difficult to comprehend. To comprehend the laws, one had to rely on oneself. It wasn't good to rely on others. Ning Shu was about to go to the spatial city when the Cheongsam man sent a message saying that the law incarnations were having a gathering and asked if she wanted to go. A gathering of law incarnations? Was there such an event? Ning Shu had never heard of such a gathering. It was rare to see mission enforcers and big shots gather together to drink and sing. The law incarnations were so free that they actually had a party. Although there was tension in any work and relaxation in work, Ning Shu had never participated in a mission enforcer gathering. The law incarnations couldn't be compared to those big shots who picked up trash, but they were still very powerful compared to ordinary mission enforcers. Ning Shu asked directly, "It's really a simple gathering. Did something happen?" The Cheongsam man asked, "Are you coming?" Ning Shu asked, "You're telling me secretly. Are you planning something?" She always felt that these law incarnations wouldn't gather for no reason. Even if they were gathering, there should be a reason for them to gather. The Cheongsam man said, "You're quite sharp." She had almost been tricked not long ago. Now she was vigilant. Ning Shu asked, "Tell me, what do the law incarnations want?" The Cheongsam man said, "Guess, it has something to do with you." Ning Shu was stunned for a moment. If it has something to do with me, could it be that something happened to Water City this time and those law incarnations are thinking about it? She was fined 1,000,000 merit points and had to work for another 100 years for nothing. Why would these people still think about her? The Cheongsam man's tone was a little gloating. Because you're not qualified to be the city lord, they think you should be stripped of the city lord medal. You're the city lord of 2 law cities. Ning Shu rolled her eyes. She was just sitting at home, yet trouble came from the heavens. To put it bluntly, she was jealous. The problem was, what was there to be jealous about? She had to work for 200 years for nothing. Ning Shu asked, "How are they going to deal with me? I only have 2 law imprints. If I hand them over, there won't be enough for so many people." The Cheongsam man said, "Of course there's a way to divide them." Actually, they're not convinced. After making such a big mistake, they were let off lightly. Many people are not convinced. So what if they're not convinced? Go to the grand uncle or the main system. She was so busy. /BK Chapter 2780. Reading on the phone. She was probably not very sociable and was more of an anomaly. The law incarnations probably wanted to get rid of her. Besides, it seemed like the taxes in her hands were very attractive. Ning Shu crossed her legs. Then how do they plan to deal with me? Are they going to protest the organization's decision or threaten me to hand over the water and wood law imprint? She probably didn't have much of a presence. After the incident with Hongyu, Ning Shu basically didn't want to deal with law incarnations. Firstly, there was no conflict. Secondly, there were too many things to do and he didn't have time to interact with law incarnations. She didn't expect that the law incarnations would want to kill her. The Cheongsam man said, "We'll jointly write a letter to the main system expressing our doubts about the main system's punishment and review results." Hundreds of law incarnations had jointly written a letter. Ning Shu sat steadily. They can go ahead and jointly write a letter. I don't care. The Cheongsam man said, "Compared to hundreds of people, you're obviously not worth enough. Besides, with so many people writing a letter, the organization still has to take it seriously." Ning Shu just smiled. These people probably didn't see the organization's nature clearly. Putting aside whether she could really get the organization to let her go, this matter was already decided. Now, they were still coming out to say that they were questioning the organization's decision. They definitely wouldn't set such a precedent. If they wanted to overturn the previous decision with just a few hundred people, it would be a slap to the organization's face. This organization was not a democratic organization. The organization, I don't care about my face. Secondly, the law incarnations overestimated themselves. Even if a few law incarnations died, as long as there was a law imprint, anyone could become a law incarnation. The law imprint was important. As for who the incarnation was, it didn't matter at all because anyone could become a law incarnation. Becoming a law incarnation could obtain the law's recognition through one's own comprehension and become a law incarnation. Secondly, obtaining the law imprint would allow one to reach the heavens in one step. Obviously, someone wanted to reach the heavens in one step and directly obtain her imprint to become a law incarnation. Moreover, now that his water law and life law had fused together, she would not hand it over even if she died. Ning Shu said to the man in the Cheongsam, "I won't go to your party. If I go, how are you going to discuss it? If you want to submit a joint petition, then go. Do whatever you want. Even if the organization really wanted to punish her for taking advantage of the opportunity to make money, sorry, she had one exemption. Immunity was a reward after the war. Every living law incarnation had one. Could it be that these people had forgotten? If he could apply to punish her once, would he be able to apply for a second and third punishment? Organization, I don't care about my reputation. In short, Ning Shu was certain that his life was not in danger and would not be obliterated. There was also the Nine Palace Mountain and the world of reincarnation. These things were enough to keep her alive. Even if the organization wanted to punish him, it would probably be to pick up trash. Ah, this feeling of not dying is really good. The Cheongsam man, are you that fearless? Ning Shu said, if you tell me the news, those law incarnations won't let you go. Be careful. Ning Shu felt that the silver-haired man was indeed from the same trench. He would inform her whenever something happened. Yes, they were really good sisters. The Cheongsam man, if you become my girlfriend, I can provide you with more inside information. How about it? It's a good deal, right? Girlfriend? For a coward like the Cheongsam man, when he entered, you had to enter too. He was instantly scared. Okay, what inside information can you tell me? Who was the one who started this? The Cheongsam man, TSK, TSK, TSK. You're selling yourself for some inside information. Do you have any integrity? I knew you would be scared. Ning Shu smiled knowingly, revealing a mysterious smile like that of an auntie. Who started it? This could not have been done without someone's organization. And there were hundreds of people. The distribution of benefits was also very confusing. The plan would be aborted if they were not careful. Jealousy alone was not enough to make them spend so much effort. There must be someone behind her. The Cheongsam man said, the first person to talk about this was the law of earth incarnation. When you became the law of water incarnation, he was managing the city of water and all the taxes went into his pocket. After you became the law of water incarnation, he no longer had a share in the taxes. Plus, you're actually quite eye-catching this time. If not for the fact that we're all souls, people would think that you've sold yourself. Ning Shu was speechless. What a great imagination. She did not expect that even though she was no longer a law incarnation, the world was still full of legends about her. Ning Shu thought about it. Someone deliberately provoked dissatisfaction with her, and then it developed to the point of being attacked by a group. She had blocked the law incarnation group. Of course, she would not look at the news. She did not expect such a surprise. Only a mediocre person would not be envied. So go ahead. I don't care. Ning Shu expressed her gratitude to the Cheongsam man and invited him to a meal when she was free. The Cheongsam man was actually a little afraid of the world being in chaos. Now that things had developed to this point, he reminded her as if he was watching a good show. This guy was secretly watching a good show. Ning Shu closed the chat system. Was the law incarnation the only one who wanted to cause trouble? Perhaps there was someone behind the law incarnation. The law incarnation was actually a gun used to deal with her. If something happened to her, of course, it would be good. If nothing happened, the person behind it would not matter. There were many people in the organization, and each of them had their own thoughts. However, under the premise that it did not interfere with the organization turned a blind eye to small fights. The organization only cared about driving the ship forward. It was safe. They did not care what the people on the ship were thinking. Moreover, they could not control their thoughts. However, if someone wanted to destroy the ship, this would not do. For example, the fights between the mission enforcers did not interfere with the organization. Organization, it's none of my business even if you kill them. This was a little fucking interesting. Strictly speaking, Ning Shu rarely had conflicts with the people in the organization. Other than the incident with Hongyu and the subsequent events, she basically did not interact with anyone else. She should be considered half a loner. She might be thought of as a soft persimmon that could be pinched. Also, the things on her were too tempting. Children making trouble in the market. Was it the incident with Hongyu? At that time, she had offended two people. The malicious young master Rong Hua and Wen Yan. Was it these two people? Hongyu was already dead. Other than these two people, Ning Shu could not think of anyone else. As for the others, Ning Shu nodded to them. As for the big shots that she knew, they did not seem like people who would do such a thing. This book came from translator, Atlas Studios editor, Atlas Studios. Chapter 2781. Ning Shu was thinking about who was behind the Law Incarnation. The Law Incarnation wanted to cause trouble for no reason. How should he deal with this matter? Of course, he couldn't just let it go. If he let it go like this, then anyone could implicate ordinary people in the future and write a joint petition to kill her. Ning Shu asked the Chongsam man, "Where are you? Since it's about me, how can I not be there?" The Chongsam man said, "Oh, you really want to come? Hundreds of people are fighting against you. If you become my girlfriend, I'll help you." Ning Shu felt that the Chongsam man had selectively forgotten something. Hadn't she already agreed to be his girlfriend? Why was he asking now? When someone else replied, he immediately chickened out. Not long after, he brought up the matter of asking her to be his girlfriend again. How cowardly was he? If he was really so cowardly, then don't mention it. Anyway, Ning Shu had never seen such a conflicted person. When he saw a girl and asked if she wanted to be his girlfriend, the normal girl's reaction would be to scold him and say, "Are you crazy?" He only dared to flirt but didn't dare to really do it. There was no one else like him. Ning Shu said, "Do you really want me to be your girlfriend? Okay, where is the gathering?" The Chongsam man said, "We're in my restaurant now. Do I look easy to bully? Or do those people think that I've already joined the team? Why are they so impolite? How dare they discuss these things in front of me so casually? Do they think that I won't betray them because I'm the Law Incarnation?" Ning Shu smiled and said, "Of course they think that you won't betray them because this is a good thing for the Law Incarnation. Even if you don't join them, you won't betray them. Be honest, have you already betrayed the Law Incarnation group?" The Chongsam man couldn't help but snort. "Don't label me. I've already said what team I'm from. It's not that they think too highly of themselves." Ning Shu picked up the black bone umbrella. The surface of the umbrella had turned white and the dirt on it had been cleaned. Fortunately, it had been cleaned. Otherwise, if he appeared in front of the enemy with a dirty umbrella, he wouldn't look imposing. Image was also a necessity in battle. Ning Shu appeared in the Time City. Actually, the Time City had already reached its limit. The number of people was already full. Although it was full, there were still many mission givers who wanted to enter the Time City. Oh, this matter shouldn't have caused a ruckus. Otherwise, why would there be so many people watching the show? Ning Shu discovered that nomological incarnations were indeed quite troublesome. Last time, this time. She was still the fuse. What else could Ning Shu say? He could only say that disaster had descended from the heavens. Last time, everyone was punished for the accident, and she almost lost her life. At that time, he was not strong enough. He had no choice but to endure it. This time, it actually came again. This time, I had to endure it. It's a waste of me being so tired every day. He was as tired as a dog, yet he still had to be treated as a fat lamb. She was clearly a diligent little scalper, okay? The Time City was full. Luckily, Ning Shu was the city lord and could enter any city he wanted without any restrictions. The City Lord medal also represented a bit of privilege and uniqueness. All of them wanted the things in her hands. Usually, she didn't do anything special. Other than picking up trash, doing missions, and taking care of her own world. She didn't have much interaction with these people, but they could all target her. Why didn't she ask the Cheongsam man to hand over the nomological imprint? She didn't dare. The Cheongsam man had accumulated a lot of power among the nomological incarnations. Ning Shu held the black bone umbrella and walked towards the restaurant step by step. There were many people at the entrance of the restaurant. They were all mission givers who were here to watch the show. Even if they had become souls, the curiosity in their bones couldn't be changed. Moreover, the life of a mission giver was quite boring. Now that there was a good show to watch, they all rushed to the Time City. Ning Shu looked at these people and couldn't help but frown. How did the news spread so quickly? Was she the last person to know? She's here. Is she the nomological incarnation of water and wood? Isn't she courting death by coming at this time? It's a woman. When the surrounding people saw Ning Shu, they all whispered to each other and made a path. Ning Shu held the umbrella and walked in front of these people. Probably because of the nomological imprint of wood and life, when Ning Shu walked in front of them, they felt an indescribable sense of comfort. It was as comfortable as a spring breeze caressing their faces. The tiredness in their souls slowly disappeared. There was an indescribable sense of comfort. There was no fragrance, but it made them feel relaxed. Everyone sighed in their hearts. It was indeed the nomological imprint of wood. It was full of vitality. They could feel the energy and comfort of the nomological imprint of wood just by walking past it. If they had the nomological imprint of wood, it would be a great thing. It wasn't that the soul didn't feel tired. It was just that compared to the physical body, it wasn't easy for the soul to feel tired. However, as a soul that once had a physical body, it would sometimes feel tired after a long time. Ning Shu walked to the entrance of the restaurant without a change in her expression. She closed the umbrella and walked in. In the main hall of the restaurant, hundreds of people were squeezing the restaurant to the point of bursting. When Ning Shu walked in, the originally bustling restaurant quietened down. Absolute silence. Hundreds of eyes were cast on Ning Shu. They were like rays, sizing up Ning Shu from head to toe. Ning Shu grunted and said directly, "Do what you have to do. Don't worry about me." When the Cheongsam man saw Ning Shu, he opened his fan. Ning Shu walked over to the Cheongsam man. No one said a word. Ning Shu sat opposite the Cheongsam man and ordered some tea and pastries. Seeing that these people were still staring at him, he said, "Why are you looking at me? Do what you have to do. Don't worry about me." Everyone, fuck, so arrogant. Aren't you afraid that you will be killed after you submit a joint petition? The originally quiet restaurant became noisy again. People were whispering and whispering to each other. Their eyes were filled with fear and dissatisfaction when they looked at Ning Shu. The Cheongsam man fanned himself leisurely. "You've become prettier. Why did you change your clothes again?" Ning Shu raised her arm and drank from her teacup. "I like it." The Cheongsam man smiled. "How does it feel to be hated and condemned by so many people?" Ning Shu spread her hands. "I don't feel anything. These people have nothing to do with me. I don't feel anything. I even feel like laughing. These people were not people she cared about. Why would she make herself suffer because of their hostility and malice? Sorry, I won't reflect on why I'm in trouble. I only know that I didn't provoke you, but you provoked me." Ning Shu glanced at them from the corner of her eyes. There were many nomological avatars here. However, there were some nomological avatars that were rarely seen. Chapter 2782. For example, he hadn't met the law of space incarnation yet. But the law of space incarnation was still alive. This time, a one didn't come over. Ning Shu wanted to talk to Ah Wan and chat with her. The law of space incarnation had some new members. After the war, at least half of the law of space incarnation died on the battlefield. Naturally, there were people to fill the empty positions. Ning Shu saw a few girls. The girls were sizing up Ning Shu. They avoided Ning Shu's gaze. Ning Shu retracted his gaze. Everyone had a herd mentality. For example, the law of space incarnation wanted to do something that everyone supported. But if someone disagreed or objected, they would be despised, alienated, and targeted by the majority. In order to avoid being targeted, they could only blend in with the crowd. They were afraid that they would be targeted as well. Targeting and bullying was the majority against the minority. If a classmate was hated by the majority, then this classmate wouldn't have any friends. Because they became friends with her, they would be targeted. No one liked to be isolated and targeted. If you didn't want to be targeted, you could only stand with the majority. Sigh. Ning Shu wanted to sigh. Why were there so many girls involved? At this time, he should be doing missions to avoid such things. Because there were no benefits. Bravely rejecting was a virtue. Even if he couldn't reject, he could find a reason. Was it good to target someone he didn't know for no reason? Ning Shu gently lifted the skirt of his leg with 2 fingers, then crossed his legs and asked, "Have you discussed it?" The law of space incarnation was a man. He was slightly chubby and smiled. He seemed to have a good temper. For mission enforcers, one must not look at their appearance. This was because mission enforcers had experienced a lot. They had done missions time and time again, seen things and experienced many things. Actually, we are all law of space incarnations. There's no need to be so ruthless. Okay, get to the point. I don't like to hear such words. Remember that you were the one who led this matter. You became the bad guy and now you want to be the good guy. You're so good at acting. Ning Shu directly interrupted the law of space incarnation. You're not polite to me, so how can I be polite to you? The Cheongsam man beside him fanned himself and watched the show with a smile. After losing face in front of so many people, Earth Law's expression turned ugly, and the smile on his face gradually disappeared. As a law incarnation, you're not qualified at all. You almost destroyed the law city under your command. The law incarnation is responsible for the safety of the law city. Your actions are unworthy of being the city lord. When the embodiment of the law of Earth said this, everyone else had a look of agreement on their faces. Even the mission enforcers outside the restaurant had a look of approval on their faces. After all, they had entered the law city to comprehend the laws. They did not want the law city to suddenly be destroyed by the laws, and then they would be buried in the law city. Not even a speck of dust was left. It was the city lord's fault for not being able to guarantee his life. The man in the Cheongsam chuckled. You're in trouble. He has a good reason to attack. When 2 countries were at war, they still had to find a reason to fight so that they could have a foothold. This was the will of the heavens. The words of the law of Earth incarnation directly placed Ning Shu on the opposite side of most people. Ning Shu spread his hands, smiled, and said indifferently, whether I'm qualified to be the city lord or not, it's up to the organization to decide. It's not up to you to say that I'm not qualified. That's why we have to write a joint letter to have the organization put you on trial again. If you hand over the law imprint and the city lord medal, we won't write a joint letter. The law of Earth incarnation said, and the other law incarnations echoed, yes, yes. Ning Shu's expression was somewhat inexplicable as he looked at the group of law incarnations. Is there something wrong with your brains? Everyone is a law incarnation, and one law incarnation escaped the fate of being obliterated. Shouldn't you be happy? You're clearly adding shackles to your own bodies. Oh, they had to do well, and they had to write a joint letter to request for the law incarnation to be put on trial again. In that case, the requirements for law incarnations would be even higher in the future. If they wanted to punish law incarnations in the future, what kind of benefits could make these people lose their minds to this point? They were basically shooting themselves in the foot. Did they think that the punishment for their mistakes was not severe enough? The law of Earth incarnation sneered, "We've been diligently managing the city of law, not daring to relax for a moment, but you made such a mistake. You're an embarrassment to the law incarnations. It's already like this, and we still haven't asked you to hand over the city lord medal and let someone capable manage the city of law. Occupying the latrine but not taking a shit. If you hand over the city lord medal and the law imprint, we won't write a joint letter." Ning Shu sneered, "If I ask you to die, would you be willing?" The law of Earth incarnation's expression turned ugly. "Why should I die? Then why should I hand over the law imprint and the city lord medal? Whether I can be the city lord or not is not up to you." Ning Shu directly said, "It doesn't matter. You can write a joint letter. Don't be polite, and don't care about me." Everyone looked at Ning Shu's expression, which was like a dead pig crawling in boiling water, and they were furious. They all used their own systems to request for a new punishment for the city lord of Waterwood City. After writing a joint letter, they waited for the results of the main system's processing. Ning Shu picked up a teacup and drank tea, looking relaxed and calm. The others were anxiously waiting for the results of the main system. Seeing Ning Shu like this, they were very angry. She was the one to judge, but they were so anxious that they couldn't sit still. Some of the law incarnations inevitably had thoughts of retreating, but now they were riding a tiger and couldn't get off. If they left halfway, they would definitely be laughed at, and both sides wouldn't be human. Since they had already offended the law of Waterwood incarnation, in order to ensure that they wouldn't retaliate in the future, they could only offend her to death. The Cheongsam man Ning Shu asked, "What cards do you have?" Ning Shu smiled slightly. "I won't die from killing someone. At most, she would be punished. Even if she was punished today, she couldn't let this matter go. If she didn't find trouble with others, others shouldn't think of finding trouble with her. Before finding trouble with her, they had to see if she was easy to bully." Previously, they had encountered robbing the law imprint, and now it had developed into robbing the law imprint and the city lord medal. "Alright, let's have some fun." Ding dong. Everyone's chat system rang. When they opened it, they saw that it was a message from the main system. The main system said 2 words, "Rejected." Rejected? Did it mean that the organization wouldn't punish her again? This was too embarrassing. Ning Shu smiled slightly. "Actually, you can apply again." The law incarnation's expression was a bit ugly. Hundreds of people had applied, but the main system directly rejected them. 2 words, "Rejected." There wasn't even a reason. /BK Chapter 2783. It was too depressing. At this moment, these law incarnations were like pitiful commoners, feeling powerless in the face of power. They felt especially wronged. Why? Why didn't they see the joint letter from so many people? Was the organization trying to cover for her? This was unfair, unfair. Hundreds of people stared at Ning Shu with hatred. Ning Shu sat steadily. What's there to feel wronged about? You guys were the ones who wanted to snatch it first, so what's there to feel wronged about? So what if you have more people? I'm weak and I'm in the right. That's pretty much the last fig leaf. If I'm weak, you should give in to me. If I'm weak, you're strong. You're bullying me. Ning Shu closed his eyes slightly, enjoying these gazes. The law incarnation of Earth began a second joint letter. He did not believe that the organization would ignore it if he repeated it repeatedly. The Cheongsam man fanned himself as he watched the farce. He asked Ning Shu in a good mood, "What did you do to make them hate you so much? Wealth moves people's hearts. Plus, you're feeling wronged now. Don't look at me like that. I'm afraid these people don't know that my 2 law cities haven't had any taxes for 200 years. Even if I snatched it, they're working for nothing. Of course, she would not let anyone snatch her things. Once the law imprint left her, she would die. Only when the previous law incarnation died would a new law incarnation be born. The Cheongsam man was speechless. Who do you think is behind this? The Cheongsam man's information network was quite wide. He definitely wanted to find out who was behind this. He did not know what kind of scoundrel it was. The Cheongsam man shook his head. After the second joint letter, everyone anxiously waited for the organization's reply. If it did not work, then they would keep on visiting. Even if they had to be lazy, they had to let the organization see their determination. Ning Shu moved his neck. Since I've had enough fun, I don't have so much time to play with you guys. Ning Shu opened his hand. Vines grew out of his palm, and the vines stretched toward the law incarnation of Earth. The law incarnation's expression turned ugly. What are you doing? Are you trying to fight in a law city? It's forbidden to fight in a law city. Ning Shu did not listen at all, and the vines rushed toward him. Facing an attack, there was no reason to just stand there. The embodiment of the law of Earth was like a towering mountain, and it tore the vines that reached over into pieces with its bare hands. The unique characteristic of the laws of Earth was that they were heavy and majestic, capable of bearing all living beings. Wood, on the other hand, was rooted in the soil. Dense vines were about to wrap around his body. The law incarnation was terrified. He never expected that the law incarnation of water and wood would actually make a move. They had always felt that she did not have the guts to make a move, especially in a city of laws. The last time she made a move in a city of laws, she was almost obliterated. Was she not afraid of being obliterated? Seeing the law of Earth's incarnation wrapped up like a dumpling, the surrounding law of Earth's incarnations could not help but distance themselves from it. At this time, whoever went forward would be courting death. Ning Shu stood up and placed the black bone umbrella on the ground. With the tip of the umbrella touching the ground, he walked in front of the law of Earth incarnation. The incarnation of the law of Earth could not move at all. Aside from the vines around him, the space around him had also been sealed, making it impossible for him to move. He didn't expect this woman to know some spatial laws. Ning Shu asked, "Who instigated you to do such a thing, and then you instigated so many people to denounce me?" The law of Earth's incarnation coldly snorted. "No one. It's just that I don't like you. The organization is not as fair and just as you think." Ning Shu clicked his tongue twice. "Oh, if the organization punished me according to your request, would that be fair and just?" Ding dong, the chat system notification rang out. Everyone received a reply for the second time. The main system was still concise with a single word. Rejected. The law of Earth's incarnation's expression was somewhat indescribable. He was so indignant that he wanted nothing more than to commit suicide to complain about the injustice of this world. Ning Shu shrugged. Was this guy stupid? Why would he bring up something that happened so long ago? How interesting. Ning Shu's vines reached the law of Earth's incarnation's wrist. There was a brown mountain on his wrist. This was the law of Earth's imprint. The tip of the vines became extremely sharp and pierced into the soul of the law of Earth's incarnation, trying to dig out the law of Earth's imprint. "Ah, what are you doing? You want to steal my law of Earth's imprint? You're shameless." The law of Earth's incarnation's voice was filled with fear. He kept shaking his body while simultaneously stimulating the power of the law of Earth's imprint. His soul became larger and larger, and the vines wrapped around his body were torn apart. However, even more vines wrapped around his body. Moreover, the tip of the vines pierced deeply into his wrist, trying to dig out the law of Earth's imprint. "Law of water and wood, you've gone too far. Aren't you afraid of the organization's punishment?" The law of Earth's incarnation was flustered and exasperated. He was trapped in a space, and the space was frozen. He had no way to break out, and the people around him could not enter. No one could help him. Rather than punishment, I'd rather see you lose your law of Earth's imprint. Since you want to steal my law of Earth's imprint, I can also steal yours, Ning Shu said indifferently. After obtaining a law of Earth's imprint, Ning Shu felt that he could accept any punishment other than being obliterated. The law of Earth's incarnation's expression was ugly. The other law of Earth's incarnations were trembling with fear. You can't do that. This is a law city. Fighting is prohibited. You're knowingly breaking the law. Aren't you afraid that the organization will punish you? The other law of Earth's incarnations shouted at Ning Shu, but no one dared to step forward. What if they were entangled by the vines and had their law of Earth's imprint taken away? The law city's taxes were the bulk of their income. Without the imprint, they would lose their lives, and they would not owe anything. They would have nothing left. Ning Shu smiled. If I wasn't brave enough, my law of Earth's imprint would have been snatched away by you. In any case, if I'm having a hard time, everyone will have a hard time together. Wait, let me make it clear in advance. Who will be responsible for breaking the things in my restaurant? The man in the Cheongsam closed his folding fan and asked, who will be responsible for the losses? We agreed not to fight in my territory. Ning Shu said, of course, we'll split it evenly. Everyone. Split your head. You were the one who started it, so why should we split it evenly? Ah. The law of Earth's incarnation cried out in pain. To have his law of Earth's imprint taken away from him was as painful as having a piece of flesh ripped out of his body. Let go of the law of Earth's incarnation first. If there's anything, we can talk about it slowly. Out of self-preservation, these people could not just stand by and watch Ning Shu kill the law of Earth's incarnation. Ning Shu smiled and did not stop. Instead, he sped up. If nothing unexpected happened, the organization would soon find out about the commotion here. Since she was going to be punished anyway, she had to get something out of it. /BK Chapter 2784. The law imprint of the Earth law incarnation had to be taken. Ah! A mark floated out. Ning Shu quickly grabbed the law of Earth imprint and fused it into her body without even thinking about it. As long as it merged with her body, the law imprint would be hers. If she wanted to take it out, she would have to kill her. Ning Shu was now gambling. Gambling on whether she had value and whether she would be abandoned. Soon, a brown mountain-shaped imprint appeared on her wrist. Ning Shu smiled faintly and snatched one. Fortunately, water, earth, and wood were not so incompatible. If it was a fire law imprint, she would not have merged it with her body. That was because water and fire were incompatible, and the wood law imprint was afraid of fire. Everyone looked at the bandit Ning Shu in shock. The Earth Law Incarnation's eyes were bloodshot as he stared at Ning Shu in horror. His soul was dissipating because Ning Shu had become the new Earth Law Incarnation. The previous one should disappear. The law imprint had a bad temper and could only allow one to exist. In fact, a law incarnation was not noble at all. It was just an incarnation. Just from the name, one could tell that it was a law incarnation. You, the surrounding people gasped. Damn, they were here to suppress her, but the Earth Law Incarnation was destroyed. She brazenly took away someone else's law imprint in front of so many people. At the same time, these people quickly became excited. Since it was like this, the organization would definitely punish her. She now had 3 law imprints. As long as this person died, the 3 law imprints on her body would be in a popular law city with a lot of people. You will die a horrible death. You will die a horrible death. The Earth Law Incarnation, no, it should be the former Earth Law Incarnation, stared at Ning Shu with resentment. His soul was getting weaker and weaker, and it was about to disappear. Very good, very good, very good. Grand Uncle, who had rushed over, had a gloomy expression. Seeing that the Earth Law Incarnation's soul was about to dissipate, he collected the dissipating soul power. His expression was extremely ugly. With a black hole behind him, he looked around at the people present. He raised his gun and fired a few shots. Several Law Incarnations were bounced off, and their faces showed despair and helplessness. The Law imprints on their bodies floated out. The Grand Elder's face was gloomy as he crushed several Law imprints, causing everyone's hearts to ache. The few nomological avatars leading the way were destroyed, and the Grand Elder aimed his gun at Ning Shu. What the hell? The Grand Elder fired a shot at Ning Shu. His face was ugly. Obviously, he was angry with Ning Shu's behavior. The black bullet was extremely fast. It passed through layers of space and shot towards Ning Shu. She was almost unable to move. The bullet brushed past Ning Shu's earlobe. In an instant, Ning Shu's soul became weak, but it did not disappear. After taking away 3/4 of her soul energy, her soul had become transparent and could be blown away by the wind. Ning Shu just smiled. Of course, she knew that her actions were provocative. The Grand Elder sneered. Do you really think I can't touch you? If there's a next time, I'll kill you. Your reliance can be taken away in an instant. A small lousy world, destroyed. So many worlds were destroyed every day. What was a small lousy world? The Grand Elder's face was particularly ugly and cold. The gun in his hand trembled slightly. Obviously, he still wanted to kill. As for you people who participated in this matter, 100 years of taxes will be deducted. If you're not convinced, you can file a complaint. As a result, another 100 years of taxes will be deducted. If they complained, they would be punished in advance. Everyone was speechless. They were clearly not allowed to complain. The hundreds of nomological avatars had ugly expressions. How much was 100 years of taxes? 100 years? They would not get anything. Instead, they would lose 100 years of taxes. 100 years of taxes was enough to break the hearts of the nomological avatars. However, the few leading nomological avatars were already dead. Who could pay for this loss? Moreover, the promised benefits were gone. And you, 1 million. The Grand Elder looked at her coldly. Ning Shu was speechless. 1 million. Of course, what did this 1 million mean? Every time she picked up trash, others picked up 100,000, but she picked up 1 million. Ning Shu's soul was so weak that it was almost transparent, but she still sat down and asked indifferently, what about the time limit? It can't always be 1 million. I can't do it. The time limit will wait for the organization's notice. The Grand Elder disappeared in a flash. As soon as the judge left, the scene was silent for a while. Everyone looked at Ning Shu. Ning Shu smiled and said, my soul is very weak now. If you want to cause trouble, do it as soon as possible. I won't wait for you later. However, no one dared to go. They all looked at Ning Shu with disgust. It was all because of her that they had caused such a big trouble and caused everyone to suffer heavy losses. You have to pay for our losses, someone said weakly. Someone in the team said timidly. Once he finished speaking, he hit himself. It was impossible to tell who said it. Pay for your losses? Don't you know that everything has risks? Ning Shu wanted to laugh. She had to pay for her losses. No matter who comes looking for trouble, I'll accompany you to the end. In any case, I don't care. Ning Shu returned to the system space and took out the pure soul power that she had stored before to absorb it. Her soul was so weak that it would be blown away by the wind. The Grand Elder appeared in the dark city. He floated above the city lord's mansion and fired a shot at it. The black bullet shot directly into Wen Yan's heart in the pavilion. Soon, Wen Yan's soul collapsed. The black law imprint floated to his hand and he crushed it. His expression was gloomy and cold. In a flash, he appeared in the broken plane. He walked over to a man and kicked him in the side. Who the fuck kicked the old man? The man who was picking up fragments was furious. When he turned around and saw that it was the Grand Elder, he immediately smiled and said, "Ah, how did you find me so quickly?" The Grand Elder kicked him again. "She's dead. The number of fragments she can pick up is more than yours." The man laughed. "It's just a little joke. You know, when I see such a weak, helpless, and silly child, I can't help but make a little joke. Look at her. She only knows how to pick up trash. So helpless and pitiful." "Tsk, tisk," the Grand Elder kicked him, causing the man to frown. It was very painful, but he endured it. That weak and helpless child is still alive, right? Did you kill her? It's such a pity. It's such a pity for a child who only knows how to pick up trash. The man smiled mischievously. The Grand Elder was expressionless. "Are you very free? If I don't find something for you to do, you find something for me to do." The man raised his hand. Okay, I admit my mistake. How long do you want me to pick up?" "I'll do it." The Grand Elder put his gloved hand on the man's shoulder. He squeezed the man until he cried out. At the same time, he absorbed the man's soul power. Enough. How much more do you want to absorb?" The man's expression wasn't good. Anger flashed between his brows, but he endured it. /BK Chapter 2786. Too many souls were taken away this time, resulting in this situation. Ning Shu lay on the sofa and didn't want to move. She obtained the Earth Law imprint, but the main system wouldn't purify soul stones and soul fluid in the future. What if the world of reincarnation needed a large amount of soul energy? Where would she get it from? Originally, she had stored this soul energy for the world of reincarnation in case one day the soul energy in the rebirth pool wasn't enough to support the world of reincarnation. Now that she used it, what would happen if the world of reincarnation needed soul energy in the future? Ning Shu wiped her face. She was panicking because she didn't have food at home. If something happened, many worlds would be ruined. There was a complete world of reincarnation and so many developing worlds. It wasn't that the organization couldn't do anything to her, but that her hands and feet were tied. She had to rely on the organization to purify soul fluid and soul stones. If she could do it herself, she wouldn't have to worry so much. The organization monopolized the technology. Other than the organization, no one else could do it. She could only look for the organization. Then they would bully the customers. In any case, there were gains and losses in this matter. What made Ning Shu feel the most uncomfortable was that they didn't purify her soul fluid and mixed it with the stones. This might cause problems in the world of reincarnation. Ning Shu thought about it. If the world of reincarnation lacked soul energy, she would have no choice but to place some souls in the rebirth pool. This way, there would be enough soul energy to protect the world of reincarnation. Headache, baldness. Since she provoked someone, she had to bear the consequences. Since she had already done it, there was nothing to regret. But at least she survived and wasn't killed. Most importantly, she didn't want someone to plot against her for no reason in the future. Other than the Earth Law and a few law incarnations, she didn't ask about the person behind this. She was anxious to get the imprint and didn't ask about the person behind this. The clues were cut off just like that. Such a big commotion and a few hundred people were mobilized to deal with her. This person wasn't a small character. There must be benefits that moved the law incarnations. The benefits needed by a few hundred people weren't small. There was clearly someone behind this. Ning Shu thought about it and didn't know who she had offended. Was it someone rich, willful, and capable? If she didn't get to the bottom of this, she wouldn't be able to eat or sleep in peace. Ning Shu felt that even if he asked the group of nomological incarnations, he probably would not be able to get anything out of them. After all, the group of nomological incarnations only came into contact with the nomological law of Earth and a few of their leaders. There was no contact at all with the person behind this. Damn, they're really vigilant. Ning Shu felt the hairs on his back stand on end. There was a pair of eyes staring at him, and he even knew that he was not on good terms with the law incarnation, which led to this incident. He felt that this guy was quite scheming. If he didn't show up, the people who charged at the front would definitely be punished and might even be killed. Since he was already dead, there was no need to give him the alluring benefits that he had promised. He didn't give her a single cent and caused such a mess. Those law incarnations really didn't think that the law couldn't punish the majority, right? No, for the organization, the more people there were, the more money there was. They couldn't be bothered to deal with one or two people, but if there were too many people, they would deal with them all at once. They wouldn't do the same thing twice. Ning Shu stomped his feet in annoyance. He really couldn't think of anyone who wanted to deal with him. Abyssal Prefect. He was so engrossed in planting flowers that he couldn't extricate himself. Senior Uncle. That was impossible. Silver-haired man. Impossible. Although he was a little black-hearted, he was still willing to be slaughtered. Anha. He was already so busy dealing with the military, how could he have the time to care about the disagreements between mission enforcers? Cheongsam Man. Impossible. He wouldn't go so far as to flirt everywhere. Besides, Ning Shu felt that he shouldn't have so many resources to plan. Mei Ziqing. He was struggling to build a world. Uncle. He was addicted to making props. These were the people he knew. As for offending anyone, he didn't know. So, who the hell wanted to mess with him? Ning Shu asked 2333, who do you think is behind this, 2333? How would I know? I don't know anyone. I'm just a person as pure as paper. Pure as paper. Straw paper. 2333, does it feel good to commit a crime against the wind? Ning Shu nodded. Yes, so good that my whole body is shaking. He was still scared. He wouldn't be able to purify the soul fluid and soul stone in the future. It was too fucking tempting. 2333, pay more attention to those big shots. It's most likely a big shot who did this. You probably didn't even know who you've offended. Ning Shu really couldn't remember which big shot she had offended, or if she had offended that big shot unintentionally. And why did they target him? What were they after? No one would be so bored as to do this. If it were her, she would definitely go straight to the person involved and deal with it directly. There was no need to go in such a big circle and waste time and effort. It was a waste of energy. It meant that the other party didn't want her to know about his existence. Pay attention to the big shots. There were so many big shots, and they were picking up garbage in batches. There were too many of them. And when she was picking up garbage, she basically didn't talk to these big shots. Other than those she was familiar with, she basically didn't talk to anyone. Ning Shu was too lazy to think about it. In any case, he couldn't remember who did this at all. He would definitely jump out in the future. She would definitely know. It was just that there was someone secretly staring at her, which made her especially unhappy. He was like a poisonous snake hiding in the grass, who knew when he would jump out and bite her. This was a very bad feeling. If she found out who it was, she would kill that person. It didn't make sense that she had to endure it when others were bullying her. Ning Shu sighed. He felt that this was an unexpected disaster. Ding dong. The chat system rang. Ning Shu didn't want to look at the message at all. In the past, the chat system basically didn't ring, but now it was ringing. Could this be considered a delightful trouble? Ning Shu opened the chat system and found that it was a message from a law incarnation. The tone was very bad, and it was all insulting words. He said that Ning Shu was a jinx and wanted to compensate for their losses. Ning Shu, what the hell? They were looking for her to compensate for their losses. Shouldn't these people look for the person who led them to do this? Oh, right. The leaders were all killed. They were dead. No one was looking for her, so they came looking for her. These people were probably confused by their anger and vented their anger on her. Moreover, she wasn't the one who started this from the beginning to the end. They only wanted benefits and didn't want to take any risks. How could there be such a good thing? Dream on. Ning Shu, I'll compensate for your losses. Sure. What kind of law incarnation are you? Let's fight. Anyway, I've already killed an Earth law incarnation. One more doesn't matter. The other party was speechless for a long time. Ning Shu directly blacklisted the other party and opened the law incarnations group. Many law incarnations were crusading against her, condemning her in speech and writing. It was very intense. Obviously, she had become an anomaly among the human law incarnations. The matter this time made Ning Shu offend several hundred people all at once. Since they couldn't find trouble with the grand uncle, they could only look for Ning Shu. Chapter 2787. There were also people who lamented that Ning Shu was not responsible at all as the city lord and had even broken the barrier of the law cities. Now that he had 3 law imprints on him, they were deeply worried about these 3 law cities. Another accident might happen. These words were indeed sour, but many people agreed. Ning Shu was now a useless Ado who was still occupying the throne and enjoying the glory. It wasn't that these law incarnations didn't understand that they were in the wrong, but 100 years of taxes was enough to make people feel heartache. 100 years, it was suffocating and suffocating. Ordinary humans were considered to have lived a long life if they lived to 100 years old. They didn't have to pay taxes for 100 years and only relied on doing missions to earn some merit, but they also had to tighten their belts. Moreover, 100 years of work was for nothing. Whether they had money or not, they had to do things well. If anything happened to the law cities, they had to be responsible. But they didn't have a single cent or any merit. And they couldn't appeal. Once they appealed, no matter what the outcome was, they would first have to pay another 100 years of taxes. They could only hold it in. It made people angry and sad. How could they not resent Ning Shu, the main culprit? Moreover, he had killed the Earth Law incarnation and snatched the Earth Law imprint, but he wasn't killed and was even let go. On this side, he had killed several Law incarnations, and even the Law imprint had been crushed by the judge. Looking at the angry Law incarnations in the group, Ning Shu's heart didn't waver. She was getting further and further away from this group of people, and it was impossible for them to coexist peacefully in the future. Anyway, they couldn't be together, so the possibility of becoming friends was very small. Not to mention being friends, they were all scowling at each other when they saw each other. After all, the loss of 100 years of taxes was on her. With such a large group of enemies, Ning Shu took it very seriously. But she wouldn't take it seriously. It would be fine if she just let it go, but if they came looking for trouble in the future, she definitely wouldn't be soft-hearted. Ding dong, the chat system rang. Ning Shu flipped the page and saw that it was a message from the grand uncle, telling her to pick up trash. Ning Shu replied expressionlessly, "Sorry, my soul is too weak now. I can't pick it up." Her soul could be blown away by the wind, so how could she pick up trash? If that was the case, then so be it, but the main system didn't mention anything about pure soul stones and soul fluid. Ning Shu was very unhappy. This was clearly targeting him. Grand Uncle, don't you want to know who caused this? Of course, he did. Ning Shu picked up the black bone umbrella and walked into the spatial tunnel, arriving at a place filled with fragments. There were so many fragments floating around. How many planes had been shattered? Moreover, there were so many soldiers with guns gathered around. They were densely packed together. At a glance, there were definitely more than 100,000 of them. But why were there so many soldiers guarding this place when the plane was broken? Ning Shu saw that his body was covered in blood. Souls did not have blood. What was he doing? What's going on? Ning Shu asked. A planar war has broken out. An advanced civilization wants to break through the realm and invade other realms. And his tone was filled with killing intent. This kind of advanced civilization was considered to have developed technology to the extreme, using technology to obtain great power. Wanting to fly out of the control of heaven and earth and invade other worlds was a very normal thing. Destroy the entire plane. If not, keep it for dinner. If I don't do it in one go, do I have to worry about this every day? Directly destroying a plane, along with the living beings and technological crystallization inside. This kind of situation was relatively extreme. The organization took the initiative to destroy the plane. They did not even have the slightest tolerance for the living beings in the plane. They were ruthless. No wonder there were so many fragments floating around. Obviously, more than one plane had been destroyed. Ning Shu took the bag and began to pick up the trash. 1 million. She was going to be wasted. Her soul was not as strong as before. But the number had increased tenfold. Ning Shu looked around but did not see Grand Uncle. Didn't he say that he would tell her about the person behind the scenes? It turned out that he had tricked her here. Ning Shu resigned herself to her fate as she dragged her bag to pick up the trash. Now, star stones didn't interest Ning Shu at all. Boring, boring. She did not expect that the organization would take drastic measures and not purify her soul fluid and soul stone. Letting her soul hang like this, it was not strong, but it would not be blown away by the wind. 1 million fragments, 100,000 to pick up 5 bags. 1 million meant she had to pick up 50 bags. What a suffocating number. Just thinking about it made her desperate. Ning Shu picked up the trash faster and left after picking it up. She was probably the last person in this batch. No, by the time the next batch of people changed shifts, she might not have picked up enough. She wanted the horse to run, but she also wanted the horse not to eat grass. The horse chose to die. If this went on, she would die of exhaustion. After a while, Grand Uncle came. Ning Shu immediately dragged the bag to him and asked, "Who did this?" She was about to see her enemy. She was so excited that her whole body trembled. Grand Uncle pointed to a person, a man. Ning Shu tilted her head and looked at the man who was picking up the trash. She did not know him. She had never spoken to this man. Why would he do such a thing? Ning Shu asked suspiciously, "Really? This kind of thing could not be joked about." Ning Shu could not do such a thing, especially when the other party was a big boss. She would not offend him if she could. "Grand Uncle, it's him. As for the reason, ask him yourself." Ning Shu thought for a while, dragged the bag and walked towards the man. She swung the trash bag in her hand and directly smashed it on him. The man was caught off guard and staggered. When he looked back and saw Ning Shu, he actually smiled. "Ah, Grand Uncle told you, right? Why did you come to me so soon?" "Ning Shu, what grudge do I have with you? Why are you targeting me? Have I ever offended you?" Ning Shu dared to pat her chest and guarantee that she had nothing to do with this man. But she did not know why he was spending so much effort to deal with her. The man smiled and said, "You didn't offend me." Ning Shu, fuck, this guy is crazy. Then why are you targeting me? The man shook his head. I'm targeting you. There's no such thing. I'm just saying hello to the little one. Ning Shu wanted to scratch her head. Why did she feel like a chicken talking to a duck? And he did not feel guilty, ashamed, guilty, or disgusted at all. Not a trace of it. Why are you doing this? The man touched his chin with his finger. Why am I doing this? It's nothing. I just think it's fun. Fun? I heard you snatched the Earth Law imprint. Are you happy? Ning Shu, oh my god, this guy must be crazy. It doesn't make sense. The man reached out and wanted to rub Ning Shu's hair, but Ning Shu slapped his hand away. Chapter 2788. She was here to question him. Why did he think that she was here to chat? The man looked at his hand and was in a daze. He asked, "Don't you think that the people in this organization are sick?" Ning Shu was speechless. You're the one who's sick. He couldn't afford to offend him. He was a lunatic. The longer he lived, the crazier he became. No one could be so bored. He should be allowed to pick up trash until he died. Ning Shu asked coldly, "Why are you doing this? Do I need a reason?" "I do it because I want to. Actually, I've been waiting for the organization to fall apart. Why won't the organization be finished? It's so annoying to guard these lousy planes every day. I really want to destroy all these toys. Do you feel that way?" Ning Shu was speechless. Not at all. I don't know what you're talking about. Ning Shu was speechless. She thought that she had offended some big shot. Now, it seemed that he was someone who liked to play with people like toys. She happened to catch this person's eye and was played around with. She didn't know what this man was thinking, but she really wanted to tear this damn man apart like a toy. "Do you want to join my team?" Ning Shu asked, "What team are you in?" As Ning Shu spoke, she picked up the trash next to her and stuffed it into her pocket. It would feel good to throw it at people with more. Ning Shu's heart was filled with dread. You simply couldn't tell what a person like him was thinking in his heart. According to the thinking of ordinary people, they definitely wouldn't be able to guess. The man said, "I've dedicated my life to destroying the organization." Ning Shu was speechless. What kind of person was this? Did the organization get a lunatic? Ning Shu asked, "Why? What did the organization do to you?" The man looked depressed. "Do you know? This feeling is like a toy. It's very old, but you have to keep playing with it. You can't break it, you can't throw it away. You have to keep playing with it. It's like not letting a woman buy a new lipstick. She keeps using the same lipstick and the same color. Do you understand that kind of irritable feeling?" Ning Shu was speechless. He silently took 2 steps back and did not want to talk to a lunatic. "I'm so bored. I have to pick up trash every day. If everyone is bored, why not destroy it?" Therefore, this person didn't spend any effort to deal with her. It was just a spur-of-the-moment decision. Just like a demon, it seduced the desires in people's hearts. "Look." Ning Shu laughed coldly. "If you're really that bored, you can jump into the pool of life and reincarnate." He didn't dare to give up on his strength, but he also found it boring. The man sighed. "I like new things, but that doesn't mean I like the ignorant and stupid new me." This was a fucking double standard. For such people, the organization would kill them if they deserved it. If they really couldn't, they would enslave them until they died. Ning Shu's face was cold. "Shouldn't you apologize to me? Why are you apologizing? Didn't those people who attacked you get punished? Furthermore, you also obtained the Earth Law imprint. You didn't suffer any losses. Ning Shu really wanted to spit. What did he mean by no losses? 3/4 of her soul power was gone, and the organization didn't even purify the soul fluid and soul stones. They picked up 1,000,000 fragments each time. This was called no losses. You can't be too serious. When Ning Shu heard this, he directly threw a bag at him. I'm just that serious. How could he be in a good mood when he was targeted for no reason and this kind of thing happened for no reason? Don't be too serious. The man avoided Ning Shu's attack, shook his head and asked, is it fun? Ning Shu's mouth twitched, his face full of hostility. Has anyone ever told you that you're sick? Yes, I think they're more sick. Hee hee. Ning Shu was so angry that he laughed. Do you really want to kill me now? The man asked. Sure, come and kill me. If you kill me, it's my loss. Ning Shu was speechless. Oh my God, I don't want to talk. I don't want to see this kind of person. This was the first time he saw such a righteous and unscrupulous person. Ning Shu measured his combat power and felt that he probably couldn't beat him. And this kind of old pervert who had lived for a long time, he didn't know how many trump cards he had. He clearly did such a thing, but the organization didn't punish him. Obviously, he had a lot of trump cards. Even if Ning Shu warned himself in his heart that everyone's worldview was different, he shouldn't try to change others. Of course, others shouldn't try to change her. But this person's worldview still made Ning Shu's eggs break. Was this what it was like to live for a long time? Bored and unwilling to die, he secretly played tricks. He wanted the organization to collapse, but he didn't have the ability to push down the high wall of the organization. He would cause trouble when he had nothing to do. Ning Shu, she probably provoked this kind of person because she was against the water. Ning Shu didn't want to say a word more. It was a waste of saliva to say more. Only when he was stronger than now, he could press him to the ground and torture him. He didn't see him as an equal. It was like putting two crickets together and letting the two sides fight. No matter who won or lost, he could watch it happily. Ning Shu carried the bag and left directly. The man also carried the bag and followed Ning Shu. Speaking of this design, I also suffered a little. I was caught. Ning Shu, hee hee, how could the organization not know what kind of person you are? This guy was probably on the organization's dangerous person list. Sir, please don't follow me. I feel cold. Ning Shu carried the bag and ran away, picking up the trash quickly. The man sighed. The younger generation couldn't understand his good intentions. The man walked to the side of the Grand Elder and looked at Ning Shu who was picking up the trash. He said sadly, you know me. When I see such a silly child, I can't help but feel distressed. Get lost. The Grand Elder kicked him away. Do you still want to have your soul sucked? This time, even your soul source was sucked. The Grand Elder's face was cold. Tan Lang, put away your little thoughts. Otherwise, I know. You want to kill me, right? Actually, I'm not afraid of death. You know what kind of person I am. I don't know. Get lost, Tan Lang, selfish, greedy, ruthless, realistic, good and bad. Obviously, this Tan Lang was very bad. Tan Lang looked helpless. You guys are really sick. Seriously sick. Get lost, Tan Lang carried the bag and picked up the debris along the way. Ning Shu walked over. Ning Shu saw the old pervert coming over from the corner of his eye. He immediately quickened his pace. He didn't want to have any interaction with this kind of person. It was definitely not a good thing to be targeted by him. Yeah, I'm going to fight with you. Ning Shu turned back and rushed toward him with the bag. There should be a limit to playing with people. Otherwise, when I go crazy, even I'm afraid of myself. When the old pervert saw Ning Shu rushing toward him, he immediately quickened his pace. Chapter 2789. Ning Shu and Tan Lang rushed towards each other with bags in their hands. When they were about to get close to each other, they picked up their bags and threw them at each other's faces. With a bang, both of them were hit by each other's bags. Their heads were tilted back and they took a few steps back. If it was a physical body, the two of them would definitely have a nosebleed. Look, our thoughts are in sync. We can be good friends. Join the organization. Tan Lang said to Ning Shu. Ning Shu rubbed her nose. She didn't want her little nose to flatten. What organization? Ning Shu asked. Tan Lang said, of course it's a team formed to overthrow this rotten organization. Ning Shu was speechless. Fuck, there's a judge beside you, and you're saying that you want to overthrow this rotten organization? Ning Shu felt that if it were her, she would turn this guy into a pile of rotten bones first. Ning Shu asked in a low voice, how many people are in your organization? Tan Lang also said in a low voice, if you join, I'll tell you the strength of the organization. Ning Shu shook her head without thinking. She picked up the trash and said, I'm weak. I can't do it, so don't come to me. She still wanted to live a little longer. This guy could do some bad things secretly, but she couldn't. If this continued, she might be destroyed. This time, she was almost destroyed. If this continued, nothing in the world could save her. Therefore, Ning Shu rejected him directly. Moreover, she held grudges. This guy had schemed against her not long ago, and now he wanted to pull her into his team. He looked at her as if he had high hopes for her. Young girl, destroy the world with him. She didn't want to say that he was crazy. This kind of person had lived for too long and was too bored. Working was boring. Everything was boring. Therefore, she set a great and difficult task for herself, which was to overthrow the rotten organization. Why not? I think we should be on the same wavelength. Also, I don't mind that you're weak. Although you're a small drop of water, once you merge into the sea, you'll cause a storm one day. You have to believe in yourself. Tan Lang advised Ning Shu. Ning Shu was speechless. Fuck, don't feed me rotten chicken soup and stir up a storm. At that time, he would definitely be sold out by this guy and die a horrible death. After living for so long, he was definitely an expert at taking advantage of loopholes. As long as he was familiar with the organization's operations, he wouldn't cross the bottom line. Even if he were to be punished, it wouldn't matter. She was different. She was of little value now, the kind that was tasteless but a pity to throw away. If she really angered someone, she wouldn't even know how she died. It would be fine if he was directly obliterated, but if he was given something like a wax whip, he would be punished for 10,000 years. That would be painful. Judging from the matter of the law incarnation this time, this guy was definitely smiling on the surface but stabbing him in the back. Now, those law incarnations were crying their eyes out. They had lost 100 years' worth of taxes. Where was the promised reward? The reward was gone too. Because they didn't know who to ask for the reward, those people didn't even know that there was such a person behind them. He was just toying with her. Playing with this kind of person would make people cry for their mother. I'm sorry, but I definitely won't join such an illegal organization. I want to devote all my youth to the organization, love the organization, and support the organization. Ning Shu cursed crazily in his heart and firmly rejected the olive branch that the old pervert handed over. Was it easy for her to reach this step? There are so many people here. Why are you looking for me? I should be the weakest here, right? Ning Shu couldn't help but say. No matter who you look for, just don't look for me. I've looked for them, but they're all boring. Some of them are too lazy to move, and some of them are either making pastries or knitting sweaters. What I want are hot-blooded, motivated, and driven children. You know, my heart aches for this kind of child the most. Every time I see you, my heart aches. What a pitiful child. Ning Shu was speechless. If you're sick, take medicine. Don't give up on treatment. Heart aches. Heartache. Ning Shu felt like he was in a mess. What did the organization do to you? Do you have to overthrow the organization? Ning Shu glanced at the army that was on standby and the granduncle who was handling the star stones. Seeing so many people guarding the plane, Ning Shu suddenly felt very complicated when he suddenly saw a person who wanted to overthrow the organization. He felt that it was normal. Not everyone was willing to do this kind of thing. The organization didn't kill this guy. The organization was also quite interesting. Tan Lang, nothing. They just enslave me and make me work every day. I want to pursue freedom. This rotten organization is hopeless. Aren't you afraid that the organization will destroy you? Ning Shu asked while picking up the trash, chatting, and working with both hands. Why would they destroy me? They lack people to work and want to enslave people. The organization must think that I can't make any waves. Every time something happens, they treat me like a donkey and whip me. Poor child, come with me to get rid of this slavery and overthrow this rotten and disgusting organization. Ning Shu was speechless. You can't make any waves. It seems that you still have some idea in your heart. The organization knew this guy well, and this guy also knew the organization well. Those who entered this guy's team were unlucky. Once something happened, they would be wiped out. They were pitiful people who had nothing to rely on. To a certain extent, this guy was consuming the internal strength of the organization. He should be allowed to pick up trash until he died. This kind of person was too bored, empty, and cold. He had to find something to do, so he set a goal for himself to fight for and overthrow the rotten organization. But if the organization was destroyed, this guy would definitely fall into a new round of boredom and loneliness. He would be at a loss. He was like a rebellious child who ran away from home. It would be better if he worked more. Damn it. How did she provoke this kind of person? She had a lot of things to do every day and didn't have the time to deal with this kind of person. A million fragments were waiting for her to pick up. And he was completely unreasonable, the kind that couldn't be reasoned with. No, I refuse. Come on, poor child. No, I won't. Don't you want to overthrow the rotten organization and breathe fresh air? No, I like to breathe turbid air. Soul breath hair. Tan Lang shook his head in disappointment. Poor thing, why are you so unmotivated? You can't wake up the sleeping person. Shouldn't you wake up? Wake up the soul of freedom and fight for freedom. Ning Shu was speechless. You schemed against me before. I won't play with people who schemed against me. Vengeful mode. TSK, TSK, TSK. How can this be called scheming? Risk and opportunity are equal. Didn't you get the imprint of the law of Earth? Your strength should be stronger. Actually, I'm also helping Taishu. Those law incarnations take so much tax that the organization is so poor that they can't even eat. You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.